Ethan Carter didn't know that saving a stranger's life would destroy everything he thought he understood about survival. One moment, he was walking his daughter home from the hospital. The next, he was drowning in a river that refused to let go, pulling a woman in $1,000 suit from water so cold it burned. But the real danger wasn't the current. It was what came after. Because some people you save don't just thank you and walk away. Some people break open your carefully constructed life and force you to choose between safety and truth. If you want to see how a single choice can unravel two broken lives and build something neither person thought possible, stay with me until the end. And when you do, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The rain hadn't started yet, but Ethan Carter could smell it coming. That clean electric scent that rose from the pavement just before the sky opened up. He'd lived in Ravenport long enough to recognize the signs. The way the wind shifted off the river, the sudden stillness in the air, the darkening clouds that pressed down like a threat. "Daddy, my feet hurt," Maya said, tugging at his hand. Ethan looked down at his daughter, her small face pinched with exhaustion. 7 years old, with her mother's dark eyes and a fragility that terrified him every single day. They'd just left Ravenport Children's Hospital, another checkup, another round of cautious optimism from doctors who wouldn't commit to anything stronger than "we're monitoring the situation." "I know, sweetheart," he said, adjusting the backpack slung over his shoulder. "Just a little further, okay? We'll take the river path, it's shorter." Maya nodded, but he could see the tiredness in the way her shoulders slumped. She'd been so brave during the appointment, sitting perfectly still while they drew blood, not crying when the needle went in. Now, walking home in the October chill, she looked small and worn out in a way that made his chest tight. They turned onto the riverside walkway, a paved path that ran along the Raven River's edge. During the summer, it was crowded with joggers and families. Now, with winter approaching and the evening settling in, it was nearly empty. Just a few scattered figures in the distance, hurrying home before the weather turned. The river itself was swollen from recent rains upstream. Ethan could hear it rushing past, aggressive and dark, pushing against the concrete embankment with relentless force. He kept Maya on his left side, away from the edge, his hand firm around hers. "Can we get pizza?" Maya asked, her voice small against the wind. "We can get whatever you want," Ethan said. It was their tradition after hospital visits. Something good to wash away the antiseptic smell and fluorescent lighting. "Pizza, ice cream, both if you're hungry." Maya managed a tired smile. "Both." "That's my girl." They walked in comfortable silence for a few minutes, passing under the shadow of the old railway bridge. Ethan was mentally calculating whether he had enough cash for pizza and ice cream or if he'd need to stop at an ATM when Maya suddenly stopped walking. "Daddy, look!" He followed her gaze. About 50 yards ahead, near one of the ornamental benches that overlooked the river, a figure stood at the railing. Even from this distance, Ethan could tell something was wrong. The woman? He could see now it was a woman, was leaning too far forward, her posture suggesting either exhaustion or something darker. "Stay close to me," he said quietly to Maya. As they got closer, details emerged. The woman wore business attire, a charcoal gray suit that looked expensive even from a distance. Her dark hair pulled back in a style that suggested boardrooms and power lunches. But her hands gripped the railing with white-knuckled intensity, and her shoulders shook in a way that had nothing to do with the cold. Ethan slowed their pace, uncertain. He'd lived in the city long enough to know when to mind his own business. But something about the woman's posture, the desperate way she clutched that railing, set off alarms in his head. "Miss?" he called out, keeping his voice gentle. "Are you okay?" The woman's head turned slightly, but she didn't look at him. In profile, he could see she was younger than he'd first thought, maybe early 30s, with sharp features and the kind of bone structure that belonged in magazines. But her expression was hollow, like someone who'd forgotten how to feel anything at all. "I'm fine," she said, her voice flat and unconvincing. "Please keep walking." Ethan hesitated. Maya pressed closer to his leg, sensing the tension. He should listen to the woman, should take his daughter and continue home. Let whatever this was resolve itself without his interference. But something in that hollow voice reminded him of the worst days after Sarah died. That flat effect that came when pain went so deep that emotion became impossible, when the only thing left was a kind of terrible numbness. Maya, sweetheart, can you sit on that bench over there for just a minute? He pointed to a bench about 20 feet back, well away from the railing. But Daddy, please, baby, just for a minute. Maya looked up at him with those knowing eyes that saw too much, understood too much for a 7-year-old. She nodded slowly and walked to the bench, her small form looking even smaller against the darkening sky. Ethan approached the woman carefully, the way you'd approach something wild and wounded. He stopped about 10 feet away, close enough to reach her if needed, far enough not to spook her. I don't mean to intrude, he said quietly, but I've got a daughter sitting right over there, and if something happens to you, she's going to see it. So I'm asking, whatever you're thinking about doing, can we talk about it first? The woman's laugh was bitter and sharp. You think I'm going to jump? I think you're standing too close to a river that's moving fast enough to kill you, and you look like someone who's forgotten why she shouldn't. For the first time, the woman actually looked at him. Her eyes were striking, a gray blue that reminded him of storm clouds, but they held a kind of exhausted anger that made him take an involuntary step back. You don't know anything about me, she said. You're right, I don't. But I know what loss looks like. I know what it feels like when the world gets so heavy you can't remember why you're still carrying it. Something shifted in her expression. Your daughter, is she sick? The question caught him off guard. How did you? Hospital bracelet, the woman said, gesturing weakly toward Maya. I can see it from here, Ravenport Children's. I've donated enough money to that place to recognize their wristbands. Ethan glanced back at Maya, who was swinging her feet and watching them with concerned eyes. The pink hospital bracelet stood out against her dark jacket. She has a heart condition, he said, the words still difficult even after years of saying them. We're managing it. Today was just a checkup. And the mother? Gone. 3 years ago. Cancer. The woman's expression softened slightly, some of the hardness leaving her eyes. I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. Ethan took another step closer. Look, I don't know what brought you here tonight, and you don't have to tell me, but that river doesn't care about your reasons. It's not going to solve anything. It's just going to be cold and dark and final. The woman looked back at the rushing water. Maybe that's exactly what I need. Is it? Or is it just the easiest option left? You think this is easy? Her voice cracked, anger and pain bleeding through. You think I haven't tried everything else first? Then try one more thing, Ethan said. Step back from that railing and tell me your name. The woman stared at him, and for a moment he thought she might actually do it, might actually step back and let whatever madness had brought her here dissolve into the October evening. Instead, she let go of the railing. It happened so fast that Ethan barely had time to process. One moment the woman was standing there, backlit by the city lights across the river. The next, she'd simply released her grip and let gravity do the rest. No! The shout tore from Ethan's throat as the woman toppled backward over the railing. He didn't think, didn't calculate the risk or consider his daughter watching from the bench. His body simply moved, years of construction work and physical labor translating into pure reaction. He vaulted over the railing, his hands barely catching the metal as he launched himself toward the water. The river hit him like a fist, cold so intense it felt like burning, water forcing itself into his nose and mouth before he could catch his breath. The current grabbed him immediately, stronger than he'd imagined, pulling him under and spinning him like a toy. He broke the surface gasping, his eyes burning from whatever chemicals and runoff the river carried. Maya! He tried to shout, but water filled his mouth. Then he saw her. The woman. Already 10 feet downstream, her dark suit making her almost invisible against the water. Her head went under, came back up, went under again. Ethan kicked hard, fighting the current, his work boots feeling like anchors. The river wanted to pull him one direction, but he angled across it, using the flow to help carry him toward the drowning woman. His lungs burned, his muscles screamed, but he'd hauled lumber and drywall for 15 years, and his body knew how to push past pain. His hand caught fabric, the woman's jacket. She thrashed, panicked now, her earlier resignation replaced by survival instinct. Her elbow caught him in the jaw, stars exploding across his vision. Stop fighting! He shouted, spitting water. I've got you! But she couldn't stop, couldn't hear him over the roar of the river and her own terror. Her weight pulled them both under. In the dark water, Ethan locked his arm around her chest, pinning her arms, the way he'd been taught in a lifeguard training course 20 years ago. Muscle memory took over. Kick, pull, keep her head above water, don't let go. The river carried them downstream, but Ethan angled toward the far bank where the current eddied near an old dock. His free arm reached out, fingers scraping concrete, missing, reaching again. The woman had gone limp, either unconscious or too exhausted to fight anymore. His hand caught a metal ladder built into the embankment. Pain shot through his shoulder as his arm took both their weights, the current trying to tear them away. He held on, muscles trembling, and pulled them toward the ladder, one agonizing inch at a time. Getting the woman onto the ladder took everything he had left. He pushed her up from below, her dead weight nearly pulling him back into the water. Somehow, he'd never remember exactly how, he got her high enough to drape over the concrete edge, then hauled himself up after her. They collapsed on the walkway, both of them coughing water, shaking from cold and shock. Ethan's entire body felt like it had been beaten. His clothes clung to him, heavy and freezing, and every breath hurt. The woman rolled onto her side, retching water onto the concrete. Her perfect hair had come loose, plastered across her face. The expensive suit was ruined, torn at the shoulder, covered in river filth. "What the hell were you thinking?" she gasped when she could speak. "You could have died." Ethan laughed, a harsh sound that hurt his raw throat. "Me? You're the one who jumped into a goddamn river." "I didn't jump." She pushed herself up on shaking arms. "I slipped. I was looking at the water, and my hand slipped, and—" She stopped, her face crumpling. Oh God, I'm so stupid." She wasn't crying. She was shaking too hard for tears, her whole body convulsing with cold and shock and whatever had brought her to that railing in the first place. Ethan looked back across the river, his heart suddenly seized with panic. Maya! He could see her still on the bench where he'd left her, standing now, her small hands pressed against her mouth. Even from this distance, he could see the terror on her face. "I have to get back to my daughter," he said, trying to stand. His legs nearly gave out. The woman grabbed his arm. "Wait, you're hypothermic. We both are. You need—" She pulled out a phone from somewhere. Miraculously, it still worked, and dialed with shaking fingers. "This is Lena Whitmore. I need a car at the Riverside Dock, East Bank, near the railway bridge. Immediately. And call Ravenport Children's Hospital. Tell them we're bringing in a potential hypothermia case." She looked at Ethan. "Your daughter's name?" "Maya Carter, but she's not—" "Better safe than sorry," Lena said into the phone. "Maya Carter, age 7, cardiac patient. We're coming in." She ended the call and looked at Ethan. "How long were you in the water?" "I don't know. A minute? 2? "Long enough." She was already moving, pulling off her ruined jacket and wrapping it around his shoulders. It didn't help much, but the gesture registered through his shock. "Can you walk?" "I have to get to Maya." "Well, there's a pedestrian bridge 100 yards that way. Can you make it?" Ethan nodded, not trusting his voice. They started moving, supporting each other, two strangers bound together by catastrophe. The walk to the bridge felt endless. Every step sent fresh waves of cold through Ethan's body. His teeth chattered so hard he bit his tongue. Beside him, Lena Whitmore, he finally had a name for the woman he'd pulled from the river, moved with grim determination, her arm locked through his, keeping him upright when his legs wanted to fold. "Almost there," she kept saying. "Just a little further." When they finally reached the bridge and crossed back to the west bank, Maya was waiting. She launched herself at Ethan, wrapping her small arms around his waist and sobbing into his soaked shirt. "Daddy, I thought you died. I thought you both died." "I'm okay, sweetheart," Ethan managed through chattering teeth. "I'm okay." But Maya wouldn't let go, and Ethan couldn't blame her. He jumped into a river and left her alone on a bench while he saved a stranger. What kind of father did that? A black car pulled up, sleek and expensive, with a driver who looked unsurprised to find his employer soaking wet and covered in river filth. Lena opened the back door. "Get in," she said. "Both of you." Ethan wanted to refuse, wanted to tell this stranger that he didn't need her help, that he and Maya would be fine getting home on their own. But his body was shutting down from the cold, and Maya was shaking against him, and the hospital was 15 minutes away by foot. They got in the car. The driver had the heat running full blast. Lena pulled emergency blankets from somewhere. Of course, this car had emergency blankets, and wrapped them around Ethan and Maya. She kept her phone pressed to her ear, talking to someone at the hospital, giving instructions in a voice that expected to be obeyed. Maya burrowed into Ethan's side, her tears soaking into the blanket. He held her close, trying to stop shaking, trying to process what had just happened. "I'm sorry," he whispered into her hair. "I'm so sorry I scared you." Across from them, Lena ended her call and met his eyes. In the car's interior light, he could see her clearly for the first time. She was beautiful in a severe, controlled way, the kind of beauty that came with money and power, and knowing exactly how to present yourself to the world. But her makeup was smeared, her hair was a disaster, and something in her eyes looked absolutely shattered. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You already said that." "I mean it. She stopped, her perfect composure cracking. "I don't know what I was doing there. I honestly don't remember deciding to go to the river. I just found myself there, and everything felt so heavy, and when I looked at the water it seemed quieter than everything else." Ethan knew exactly what she meant. He'd stood in his daughter's hospital room 3 years ago, watching machines breathe for her while the doctors explained that her mother was gone, and he'd felt that same terrible quiet calling to him. "What changed?" he asked. Lena looked at Maya, still pressed against her father's side. "I saw your daughter's face when you jumped in after me. I saw how terrified she was, and I realized—" Her voice broke. "I realized I was about to do to you what losing someone does to the people left behind." The car pulled up to the hospital's emergency entrance. Medical staff were already waiting, clearly prepared by Lena's call. They descended on Ethan and Maya immediately, checking vitals, asking questions, ushering them inside with professional efficiency. In the chaos of warm blankets and heated IV fluids and concerned doctors, Ethan lost track of Lena Whitmore. One moment she was there, speaking quietly with a nurse. The next, she'd vanished like she'd never existed at all. Hours later, after they'd been checked and cleared and given stern lectures about hypothermia and risk, Ethan and Maya sat in a private room. Someone had brought them dry clothes, expensive sweats that definitely hadn't come from the hospital's usual stock. A nurse explained that Ms. Whitmore had arranged for the room and covered all the costs. "She left this for you," the nurse said, handing Ethan a business card. It was simple, elegant, expensive cardstock. Lena Whitmore, CEO, Whitmore Technologies. A phone number, an email address, and on the back, written in precise handwriting, "Thank you for showing me that someone still cares if I drown. I owe you more than I can repay." Maya was finally sleeping, curled up in the hospital bed with exhaustion that went bone deep. Ethan sat beside her, still feeling the river's cold in his bones, and stared at the business card. He should throw it away. Should take Maya home, get back to their quiet life. Forget this night ever happened. They didn't need complications. Didn't need powerful strangers with their own demons getting tangled up in their already precarious existence. But when he closed his eyes, he saw Lena Whitmore's face in the car. That moment when her perfect mask had cracked and something real and broken had shown through. He put the card in his pocket. The nurse came back with discharge papers and a pharmacy bag. Ms. Whitmore also arranged for Maya's prescriptions to be refilled for the next 6 months, she said, clearly impressed. She's quite generous. "Yeah," Ethan said, thinking about a woman who could arrange all this with a phone call, but had been standing at a railing looking for quiet in a river that had none. Generous. They took a taxi home, another gift from Lena Whitmore, apparently, and Ethan carried Maya up to their third-floor apartment. It was small, worn at the edges, but it was theirs. He tucked Maya into bed, kissed her forehead, and stood in the doorway watching her sleep. His phone buzzed. An unknown number. "I'm guessing you made it home safely," Lena's text said. Ethan hesitated, then typed back, "We did. Thank you for everything." The response came quickly. "I should be thanking you. You saved my life." "You slipped," Ethan wrote, remembering her insistence in the car. A long pause. Then, "Did I?" Ethan stared at those 2 words, at the question buried inside them. He thought about writing something comforting, something easy. Instead, he wrote the truth. I don't know. Does it matter? Yes, came the reply. Because if I jumped, then I wanted to die. And if I slipped, then maybe some part of me still wants to live. I need to know which is true. Ethan sat down heavily on his worn couch, still wrapped in the expensive sweatshirt someone had provided. Outside, the rain had finally started, tapping against the windows like fingers asking to be let in. What do you remember? He typed. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. I remember standing there for a long time. I remember thinking about how tired I was, how much everything hurt. I remember my hands getting cold on the railing, and then I remember the water. Do you remember deciding? Another long pause. No, I don't remember deciding anything. I just remember letting go. Ethan closed his eyes, thinking about all the decisions he hadn't made in the 3 years since Sarah died. All the mornings he'd gotten up because Maya needed him, not because he wanted to. All the days he'd survived not through any active choice, but simply through the absence of deciding not to. Maybe surviving doesn't always look like a decision, he wrote. Maybe sometimes it's just not choosing the alternative. That's a depressing way to live, Lena replied. Yeah, but it's still living. The dots appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, I need to see you again, not to repay you, not out of obligation. I need to understand what happened tonight. Can we meet tomorrow? Every instinct told Ethan to say no, to protect the fragile peace he'd built for himself and Maya, to avoid complications and powerful strangers and whatever chaos came with women who stood at railings and let go. But he remembered the look in her eyes when she'd seen Maya's face, the way her voice had broken when she talked about being tired. The honesty in those 2 words. Did I? Coffee? He typed. Somewhere public. I'll bring Maya. The Riverside Cafe? Noon? Ethan almost laughed at the location. You want to go back to the river? I need to, Lena wrote. If I'm going to figure out whether I slipped or jumped, I need to go back to where it happened. Fair enough. Noon, Ethan confirmed. He put his phone down and walked to the window, looking out at the rain-soaked city. Somewhere out there, Lena Whitmore was in her penthouse or mansion or whatever accommodations came with being a CEO. Somewhere out there, the Raven River kept rushing past, dark and relentless and indifferent to the people it almost claimed. And somewhere inside his chest, beneath the bruises and the cold that still hadn't completely left, something small and dangerous was starting to wake up. A feeling he'd thought died with Sarah. A sense that maybe, just maybe, his carefully controlled life was about to become uncontrollable. He should be terrified, should be planning how to extricate himself before things got complicated. Instead, he found himself thinking about gray-blue eyes and a voice that asked, "Did I?" Like the answer mattered more than anything in the world. Behind him, Maya stirred in her sleep, making the small sounds she always made when her dreams turned restless. Ethan went to her immediately, sitting on the edge of her bed, stroking her hair until she settled. "It's okay, sweetheart," he whispered. "We're okay." But as he sat there in the dark, listening to his daughter's breathing and the rain against the windows, Ethan Carter wondered if that was true, if they really were okay, or if tonight had cracked something open that couldn't be sealed shut again. In his pocket, Lena Whitmore's business card felt heavy as stone. The rain kept falling, the river kept flowing, and somewhere between survival and surrender, 2 broken people had collided in a way that might save them both or destroy what little they had left. Ethan didn't know which it would be, but tomorrow at noon, he was going to find out. The morning came too quickly, dragging Ethan from restless sleep filled with dark water and hands slipping through his grasp. He woke to find Maya already awake, sitting cross-legged on her bed and staring at him with those knowing eyes that saw too much. "You were making noises again," she said quietly, "like you did after Mommy died." Ethan sat up, his entire body protesting. Every muscle ached from fighting the river, and his shoulder throbbed where he'd caught the ladder. "Just bad dreams, sweetheart. I'm fine." "Are we really going to meet the lady from the river?" So she'd heard his phone conversation, or at least guessed enough to piece it together. Maya had always been too perceptive for her own good, reading situations and emotions with an accuracy that sometimes frightened him. "Just for coffee," Ethan said, trying to make it sound casual. "She wants to say thank you properly." "She was going to jump, wasn't she?" The directness of the question stopped him cold.
Maya, see, I'm not stupid, Daddy. I know what it looks like when someone doesn't want to be alive anymore. Her voice was small but steady, and it broke his heart. Grandma looked like that before she went to sleep and didn't wake up. Ethan moved to sit beside her, pulling her into his lap even though she was getting too big for it. Sarah's mother had died when Maya was 5, slipping away quietly one night after years of grief over losing her daughter. Maya had been the one to find her the next morning. "Sometimes people get lost," Ethan said carefully. "They forget how to find their way back to the things that matter. That doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means they're hurting." "Is she still hurting?" "I don't know. That's part of why we're meeting her, to make sure she's okay." Maya was quiet for a moment, her small fingers tracing the bruises forming on his forearms. "You jumped in after her even though you don't know how to swim very good." "Well," Ethan corrected automatically. "You jumped in after her even though you don't know how to swim well," Maya repeated with the precision of a child who'd been raised by someone who cared about grammar despite never finishing college. "You could have died and left me alone." There it was. The thing they both had been thinking since last night but hadn't said aloud. Ethan had risked everything, his life, Maya's security, their entire fragile existence, for a stranger. "I know," he said quietly. "I'm sorry I scared you." "Don't be sorry." Maya looked up at him with fierce eyes. "Mommy always said you had a hero's heart. She said it was one of the things she loved most about you, even when it scared her." Ethan felt his throat close. Sarah had said that, usually right before yelling at him for doing something reckless on a construction site or stopping to help someone on the side of the road when they were already late. She'd loved and hated that part of him in equal measure. "But Mommy also said," Maya continued, her voice dropping to almost a whisper, "that heroes have to remember they're someone's whole world too, and that I needed you more than anyone else ever could." "You do," Ethan said fiercely, holding her tighter. "You're my whole world, Maya. Everything I do, it's all for you." "I know. That's why I'm glad you saved her, because if you just walked by and she died, it would have hurt you. And when you hurt, I hurt too." The wisdom in those words coming from a 7-year-old girl who'd already lost too much nearly undid him. He pressed his face into her hair, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo, trying not to think about how fragile this all was. How one bad heart episode, one mistake, one twist of fate could take her from him. "So we'll go meet her," Maya said decisively, "and we'll make sure she's not lost anymore. Okay?" "Okay," Ethan agreed, because what else could he say? They got ready slowly, Ethan moving like an old man as his battered body reminded him of every second in that river. He made Maya's favorite breakfast, chocolate chip pancakes that were definitely not on her cardiac diet, but that he couldn't bring himself to deny her this morning. She ate them carefully, watching him with concern every time he winced while reaching for something. At 11:30, they left the apartment. Ethan had dressed in his best jeans and a button-down shirt that only had one small stain near the collar. Maya wore her favorite purple dress and the small butterfly necklace that had been Sarah's. She insisted on wearing it whenever something felt important. The walk to Riverside Cafe took 20 minutes, and every step closer made Ethan's anxiety spike higher. What was he doing? Meeting a woman who'd almost died last night, who ran some technology company he'd never heard of, who lived in a world so far removed from his that they might as well be different species. They had nothing in common except a moment of catastrophe and a few late-night text messages that had felt far too honest for strangers. The cafe sat right on the riverbank, with outdoor seating that overlooked the water. In daylight, the Raven River looked almost peaceful, its surface glittering in the autumn sun, giving no indication of the violence lurking beneath. Ethan felt his stomach turn looking at it. "There she is," Maya said, pointing. Lena Whitmore sat at a corner table on the patio, her back to the river as if she couldn't quite bring herself to look at it. She wore casual clothes, expensive casual, the kind of jeans and sweater that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly rent, and her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail.
Without the business suit and severe styling, she looked younger, more vulnerable, but there were shadows under her eyes that suggested she'd slept about as well as Ethan had. She saw them approaching and stood, her movements uncertain, like someone who'd forgotten how to navigate a simple social interaction. "Ethan," she said, then looked down at Maya. "And you must be Maya." "I'm Lena." Maya studied her with that unnerving directness children sometimes had. "Are you feeling better?" Lena blinked, clearly not expecting such a direct question. Yes, I think so. Thank you for asking." "Good. Because Daddy was really worried about you. He had nightmares." "Maya," Ethan said, mortified. But Lena's expression softened. "I had nightmares too. I think we all did." She gestured to the table. "Please sit. I ordered some things, but I wasn't sure what you'd like." The table held an absurd amount of food: pastries, sandwiches, fruit, several different types of juice, and at least 3 kinds of coffee. It was the spread of someone who had no idea what normal people ate, but had money to cover all possibilities. Maya's eyes went wide. "Can I have a cinnamon roll?" "You can have whatever you want," Lena said, and there was something almost desperate in her voice, like feeding this child might somehow make up for what she'd almost done last night. They settled into their seats, and for a few minutes there was blessed distraction in the business of eating. Maya methodically worked through her cinnamon roll while Ethan nursed black coffee and tried not to stare at the woman across from him. In daylight, without the drama of the river and the hospital, Lena Whitmore was stunning in a way that made him acutely aware of every worn thread in his shirt. But there was also a brittleness to her, like glass that had been cracked but not yet shattered. "I went back this morning," Lena said suddenly, "to the railing where it happened." Ethan set down his coffee. And I stood there for 45 minutes trying to remember exactly what I was thinking when I let go." She paused, her fingers wrapping around her own cup with white-knuckled intensity. "I still don't remember deciding to fall, but I remembered what brought me there." Maya had stopped eating and was watching Lena with solemn attention. Ethan should probably shield her from this conversation, but something told him his daughter needed to hear it as much as he did. "What brought you there?" he asked quietly. Lena's laugh was hollow. "Everything. Nothing. The accumulation of 1,000 small moments when I realized I'd built a life that looked perfect from the outside but felt completely empty inside." She looked directly at Ethan. "Do you know what it's like to have everything you're supposed to want and still feel like you're suffocating?" "No," Ethan said honestly. "I know what it's like to have nothing but the one thing that matters and be terrified every day that you'll lose it too." His hand had unconsciously moved to Maya's shoulder. Lena tracked the movement, something unreadable crossing her face. "I spent 15 years building Whitmore Technologies," she said. "Sacrificed everything for it. Relationships, health, any semblance of a normal life. I told myself it was worth it, that success would fill whatever was missing. Yesterday I closed a deal worth $800 million. She paused. "And when I was done, when everyone was celebrating, all I could think was, is this it? Is this what I gave up everything for?" "What did you give up?" Maya asked, her voice small but clear. Lena looked at her, and Ethan saw tears gathering in those gray-blue eyes. "Everything that matters. I gave up the possibility of having what you have, a parent who would jump into a freezing river to save a stranger because it's the right thing to do. I gave up softness and vulnerability and the ability to let anyone close enough to actually hurt me." She wiped at her eyes impatiently. "I built walls so high and so thick that I forgot how to climb over them. And yesterday, standing at that railing, I realized I'd locked myself in a prison of my own making." "So you tried to escape," Ethan said. "I don't know what I tried to do," Lena admitted. "I just knew I couldn't keep going the way I was. Something had to break." She looked at him directly. "And then you showed up and pulled me out of the water and reminded me that there are still people in the world who care if a stranger drowns. Do you have any idea how rare that is?" "It's not rare," Ethan said. "It's human. Most people would have done the same thing." "No, they wouldn't have. Trust me. I've spent enough time in boardrooms and negotiations to know that most people's first instinct is to protect themselves, not to risk everything for someone they don't know." "Maybe you've been spending time with the wrong people."
Lena smiled, but it was sad around the edges. Maybe I have. They sat in silence for a moment, the sounds of the cafe washing over them, distant conversation, the hiss of the espresso machine, the river moving past with deceptive calm. "Why did you want to meet today?" Ethan finally asked. "Really? Not just to say thank you." Lena took a deep breath. "Because last night, for maybe the first time in my adult life, I had a genuine human connection. When you were in that car, half frozen and exhausted, and you still made sure your daughter was okay before yourself. When you looked at me and didn't see a CEO or a success story, but just another person who was struggling." She stopped, composing herself. "I've forgotten what that feels like.
To be seen as a person instead of a position. I don't know anything about your position," Ethan pointed out. "I'd never heard of Whitmore Technologies before last night." "I know. That's part of what makes this so strange and so important. You saved my life without knowing who I was or what I could do for you in return. You just saw someone who needed help."
Maya had finished her cinnamon roll and was now working on a blueberry muffin, but her attention never wavered from the conversation. Ethan could see her processing everything, filing it away with that frightening intelligence she'd inherited from her mother. "I can't be your reminder that humanity exists," Ethan said carefully.
"Maya and I, we're barely keeping our own lives together. I work construction, I'm raising a daughter with a serious medical condition, and most days I'm just trying to make it to bedtime without falling apart. I don't have the capacity to fix whatever's broken in your life."
"I'm not asking you to fix me," Lena said, and there was steel in her voice now, the CEO showing through the vulnerability. "I'm asking for permission to figure out how to fix myself. And maybe, while I do that, I could know you. Really know you. Not as the man who saved my life, but as a friend." The word hung between them, both too simple and too complicated for what they were dancing around. "I don't have friends," Ethan admitted. "After Sarah died, everyone kind of drifted away. They didn't know what to say to me, and I didn't have energy for small talk. It's been just me and Maya for 3 years." "I don't have friends either," Lena said. "I have employees, business associates, people who want something from me. But friends?" She shook her head. "I can't remember the last time someone asked me how I was doing and actually wanted to hear the answer." "How are you doing?" Maya asked suddenly. Lena looked at her, startled. "What? How are you doing?" Maya repeated, enunciating each word carefully. "Really, not the thing you say to make people stop asking." Ethan watched Lena's face cycle through several expressions: surprise, discomfort, something that might have been grief. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I'm tired," she said. "So tired that I don't remember what it feels like not to be exhausted. I'm lonely in a way that has nothing to do with being alone. And I'm scared that I've made so many wrong choices that I can't find my way back to who I was supposed to be." "That's a better answer," Maya said solemnly. "Thank you for being honest." Lena let out a surprised laugh that turned into something dangerously close to a sob. "You're 7 years old. How are you this wise?" "She's had to grow up too fast," Ethan said, the familiar guilt rising in his chest. "Lost her mom too young, watched her dad struggle to hold things together, spent too much time in hospitals. Kids learn fast when they have to." "I'm sorry," Lena said to Maya, "about your mother, and about your heart. That's not fair." Maya shrugged with the practiced acceptance of a child who'd heard similar sentiments countless times. "Lots of things aren't fair, but Daddy says we don't get to choose what happens to us, only how we respond to it." "Your daddy sounds smart." "He is," Maya said loyally, "even if he doesn't always believe it himself." Ethan felt his face heat. "Maya, it's true," his daughter continued, undeterred. "You always say you didn't go to college, so you're not smart like Mommy was. But Mommy used to tell me that intelligence isn't just about books. She said you were the smartest person she knew about what really mattered." Ethan's vision blurred. He'd forgotten Sarah saying that, or maybe he'd never fully believed it. His wife had been a paralegal, sharp and educated, while he'd barely graduated high school before going into construction.
Their difference in education had always been something he felt keenly, even if Sarah never seemed to care. Lena was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read.
What did your wife say really mattered? Taking care of people? Maya answered when Ethan couldn't find his voice. Being brave when it's hard, showing up even when you're scared, loving people more than you love being comfortable. She sounds like she was an amazing woman. She was, Ethan managed. She really was. They fell into silence again, but it felt different now. Less awkward, more contemplative. Like they were three people learning how to be honest in a world that usually demanded performance. A waiter came by to refill their coffee. When he left, Lena leaned forward, her elbows on the table, her posture less guarded than before. Can I tell you something I've never told anyone? She asked. Ethan nodded, and Maya leaned in, clearly invested in whatever confession was coming. I built Whitmore Technologies from nothing, Lena said. Everyone thinks I'm this brilliant innovator, this fearless leader. But the truth is, I was running. My parents died in a house fire when I was 12. I was the only one who made it out. She paused, her hand unconsciously moving to her left shoulder, hidden beneath her sweater. I have scars from that night. Bad ones. And for years, every time I looked at them, all I could see was my failure to save the people I loved most. You were 12, Ethan said gently. You were a child. I know that intellectually, but emotionally? Lena shook her head. I've spent 20 years trying to prove that I deserve to have survived. Working myself to exhaustion, building something meaningful, making sure my life counted for something since theirs were cut short. But no matter how successful I become, no matter how much I achieve, I still feel like I'm that terrified child crawling out of a burning house while my parents screamed. Maya had gone very still, her eyes wide. Ethan reached across the table without thinking and put his hand over Lena's. Survivor's guilt, he said quietly. I know what that looks like. After Sarah died, I spent months wondering why it was her instead of me. Why she got cancer when she was the good one, the smart one, the one who actually made the world better. I was just some construction worker who'd gotten lucky enough to marry way above his station. It should have been me. But then I'd be alone, Maya said, her voice small and fierce. And Mommy loved you too much to want that. I know, sweetheart. It took me a long time to understand that. To accept that surviving doesn't mean you have to justify your existence every single day. Lena was staring at their joined hands like she'd forgotten what human touch felt like. Do you still feel it? The guilt? Every day, Ethan admitted. But I've learned to live with it. To understand that honoring Sarah's memory doesn't mean destroying myself. It means being the father she believed I could be. It means showing Maya that life after loss is still worth living. How do you do that? Lena's voice was raw with need. How do you keep going when everything feels pointless? Ethan looked at his daughter, who was watching both adults with concern and compassion beyond her years. You find something that matters more than the pain. For me, that's Maya. Every morning, even when I don't want to get up, even when the weight of everything feels unbearable, I get up because she needs me. And in taking care of her, I somehow end up taking care of myself too. But I don't have that, Lena whispered. I don't have anyone who needs me. I have a company, but companies don't love you back. I have employees, but they'd replace me in a heartbeat if it served their interests. I've built this enormous life, and at the center of it is just nothing. Then maybe it's time to build something different, Maya said. Both adults looked at her. She met their gazes calmly, like what she was suggesting was the most obvious thing in the world. What do you mean? Lena asked. You said you gave up everything that matters, so start getting those things back. Make friends. Let people be close to you. Stop hiding behind your walls. It's not that simple. Why not? Maya challenged. You're a grown-up. You can choose to change things. You're not stuck unless you decide to be stuck. Lena let out a breath that was half laugh, half sob. When did 7-year-olds become so wise? When they had to be, Ethan said, squeezing Lena's hand before letting go. He'd held on too long, and his palm felt cold without hers beneath it. But Maya's right. You're not trapped. You're just scared, and that's okay. Being scared doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human. I've forgotten how to be human, Lena said. I've been a CEO for so long that I don't remember how to just be. Then learn, Ethan said simply. Start small.
Have coffee with people who don't want anything from you except your company. Say yes when someone asks how you're doing and actually tell them the truth. Let yourself be imperfect. Lena's smile was watery but genuine. Is that an invitation? To have coffee again? Ethan knew he should say no, should protect the careful boundaries he'd built around his life, should keep this woman who carried catastrophe in her wake at arm's length. Instead, he said, "Yeah, I think it is." "Can I come too?" Maya asked. "I like her." "You barely know me," Lena said, but she looked pleased. "I know you told the truth when I asked how you were doing. Most grown-ups lie about that. They say they're fine even when they're not, and it makes it hard to trust them." Maya tilted her head, studying Lena with that unnerving intensity. "You're sad and scared, but you're honest. That's better than being happy and lying about it." Lena looked at Ethan with something like wonder. Is she always like this? Pretty much. Sarah used to joke that Maya was born seeing through everyone's defenses. It's unsettling, but it keeps me honest. They finished their coffee while the conversation shifted to safer topics. Maya's school, Ethan's current construction project, Lena's admission that she hadn't taken a real vacation in 8 years. But beneath the surface pleasantries, something more substantial was forming. Not quite friendship yet, but the possibility of it. When they finally stood to leave, Lena hesitated. "Can I ask you something personal?" "You've already told me about your parents dying and standing at a railing last night. I think we're past the point of worrying about what's too personal." Lena smiled, but there was nervousness in it. "Would you let me take you both to dinner? Somewhere nice? Not as repayment," she added quickly. "As friends. If we're going to do this, I want to do it properly." Ethan's first instinct was to refuse. He didn't belong in fancy restaurants, didn't have clothes nice enough for wherever Lena Whitmore would consider somewhere nice, and didn't want to feel like a charity case. But then he looked at her face and saw not pity, but hope. Like she was offering not because she felt obligated, but because she genuinely wanted their company. "Somewhere that serves chicken fingers," Maya interjected. "If we're going somewhere nice, they should have good chicken fingers." Lena laughed, and it was the first time Ethan had heard genuine joy in the sound. "I'll make sure of it. Is Friday night okay? I'll pick you both up at 6. Ethan should ask for time to think about it, should put more distance between yesterday's catastrophe and whatever was developing between them. "Friday works," he heard himself say. They exchanged phone numbers, and Lena promised to text the details. As she turned to leave, she paused and looked back at Ethan. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Not just for pulling me out of the river, for pulling me back into the world. I didn't realize how much I needed that." "We all need it sometimes," Ethan replied. "The world's too hard to navigate alone." He watched her walk away, noticed how she moved with careful precision like someone who'd forgotten how to take up space unself-consciously. Then he felt Maya's hand slip into his. "I like her," his daughter said again. "She's broken like us." "We're not broken, sweetheart." "Yeah, we are. But that's okay. Broken things can still be beautiful. Mommy used to say that." Ethan's chest tightened. Sarah had said that, usually while holding some piece of broken pottery or stained glass she'd found at a thrift store. She'd collect damaged, beautiful things and display them like treasures, insisting that fractures added character. "You're right," he said. "Broken things can still be beautiful." They walked home slowly, Maya chattering about the cinnamon rolls and asking questions about what somewhere nice meant for dinner on Friday. Ethan let her talk, his mind still back at that table, replaying everything Lena had said. He'd meant what he told her. He couldn't fix her. He was barely holding his own life together. But maybe that was the point. Maybe two people who were barely surviving alone could somehow hold each other up. Or maybe they'd both drown. When they got home, Maya went to her room to draw, her way of processing complicated emotions, while Ethan sat on the couch and pulled out his phone. He typed out a message to Lena, then deleted it, then typed it again. Finally, he settled on, "Thank you for being honest today. It meant a lot." Her response came quickly. "Thank you for seeing me as a person instead of a position. I'd forgotten what that felt like." Ethan stared at those words, thinking about a woman who had everything and nothing, who'd built walls so high she'd forgotten how to scale them. He thought about his own walls, erected after Sarah's death, designed to keep pain out, but that had also kept everything else out too. Maybe it was time to start climbing. His phone buzzed again. "I'm scared," Lena's text said. "About Friday, about letting people close, about all of it." Ethan smiled and typed back, "Good. That means you care about it. Fear means it matters." "Does it get easier? Letting people in after you've lost everyone who mattered?" "No," Ethan wrote honestly. "But it gets more worth it. The risk starts feeling less terrifying than the alternative." What's the alternative? Ethan thought about standing at that railing last night, watching Lena let go. Thought about the days after Sarah's funeral when he'd moved through the world like a ghost, physically present but emotionally absent. Thought about all the ways a person could be alive and still not be living. "Drowning on dry land," he wrote, "going through the motions but never really feeling anything. That's the alternative." The three dots appeared and disappeared several times before Lena's response came through. "Then I guess we'd better learn to swim." Ethan set down his phone and leaned back against the couch, exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with physical fatigue. In the next room, he could hear Maya humming while she drew, her voice carrying the melody of a song Sarah used to sing. Outside, the sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Somewhere across the city, Lena Whitmore was probably back in her world of technology and power, trying to reconcile the person she'd been yesterday with whoever she was becoming today. And here in this small apartment, Ethan Carter was doing the same thing, trying to figure out how a chance encounter at a railing had cracked open a life he'd thought was sealed shut. He didn't have answers. Didn't know if Friday's dinner would be the beginning of something meaningful or just another awkward attempt at connection that would fizzle out. But for the first time in 3 years, he found himself looking forward to something that wasn't directly related to keeping Maya alive and healthy. Found himself curious about another person in a way that felt dangerous and exciting and terrifying all at once. Maybe that was enough. Maybe curiosity was where connection started. His phone buzzed one more time. "Sleep well, Ethan, and thank you for not letting me drown, in more ways than one." He smiled and typed back, "Sleep well, Lena. See you Friday." Then he got up to check on Maya, to make dinner, to continue the quiet routine that made up their lives. But something had shifted. The routine felt less like survival and more like living. And in the spaces between cooking and cleanup, between helping with homework and tucking his daughter into bed, Ethan let himself imagine what Friday might bring. Let himself hope that maybe, just maybe, saving a stranger's life had also started saving his own. The night settled over Ravenport, and the river kept flowing, dark and endless. But inside apartment 3C, where a widowed father and his brave daughter were learning to live again, there was warmth and light and the fragile beginning of something new. Friday arrived with the kind of anxiety that made Ethan's hands shake while he tried to button his one decent shirt. He'd bought it for Sarah's funeral and hadn't worn it since, and now standing in front of the bathroom mirror, he could barely recognize the man staring back at him. 3 years of grief and exhaustion had carved lines into his face that made him look older than 32. "You look nice, Daddy," Maya said from the doorway. She was already dressed in the navy blue dress they'd picked out together earlier that week, her hair brushed until it shone, the butterfly necklace at her throat catching the light. "You look beautiful," Ethan said, abandoning the shirt buttons to crouch down to her level. "But you know this is just dinner, right? This isn't anything more than friends having a meal together." Maya gave him that look, the one that said she saw right through his careful words to the nervousness underneath. "It's okay to be scared, Daddy. You told Lena that being scared means it matters." "Too smart for your own good," he muttered, but he pulled her into a hug, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo and letting her steadiness calm his racing heart. The knock came at exactly 6 o'clock. Ethan opened the door to find Lena standing in the hallway, and for a moment he forgot how to breathe. She wore a simple black dress that probably cost more than his monthly rent, her hair loose around her shoulders in a way he hadn't seen before. But what struck him most was her face. She looked nervous, genuinely anxious. Her hands clasped together so tightly her knuckles had gone white. "Hi," she said, and her voice was uncertain in a way that made his own anxiety ease slightly. At least he wasn't the only one terrified. Hi, he managed. You look, wow. You clean up pretty well yourself, Lena said, and a small smile touched her lips. Then she looked past him to Maya. And you look absolutely gorgeous, Maya. Is that a new dress? Maya beamed and did a little spin. Daddy let me pick it out special. It has pockets. The best dresses always have pockets, Lena agreed solemnly. Are you ready to go? The car waiting outside was the same one from the hospital night, sleek and black with the same unflappable driver. Ethan helped Maya into the back seat, hyper-aware of how out of place they must look climbing into a vehicle that probably cost more than he'd make in 5 years. Where are we going? Maya asked as they pulled away from the curb. A place called Riverside House, Lena said. I called ahead to make sure they have excellent chicken fingers. The chef assured me they're the best in the city. You really called about chicken fingers? Ethan asked. I did, and about making sure the atmosphere isn't too formal or stuffy. I want tonight to be comfortable, not intimidating. The thoughtfulness of it caught Ethan off guard. He'd been bracing himself for some upscale restaurant where he'd have to navigate multiple forks and feel everyone's eyes on him, silently judging the construction worker who didn't belong. Instead, Lena had considered what would make them comfortable. Riverside House turned out to be exactly as advertised, elegant but warm, with exposed brick walls and soft lighting that made everything feel intimate without being pretentious. The hostess greeted Lena by name and led them to a private corner table that overlooked the river through large windows. Ethan's stomach clenched looking at the water, dark and relentless even in the city lights. Lena noticed his reaction and touched his arm gently. I specifically requested this table, she said quietly. I need to stop being afraid of it. The river isn't my enemy, my own mind is. That's very philosophical for someone who almost drowned in it, Ethan said. But he appreciated her honesty. Someone very smart told me that fear means it matters, Lena replied, her eyes meeting his. So I'm trying to face the things that scare me instead of running from them. They settled into their seats, and a waiter appeared with menus and sparkling water that probably cost more than Ethan's usual tap. Maya studied her menu with intense concentration, her lips moving as she sounded out the words. Can I really get anything? She asked, looking up at Lena with wide eyes. Anything you want, Lena confirmed, though I have it on good authority that the chicken fingers are exceptional. With French fries? With whatever you'd like. Maya grinned and announced to the waiter with perfect seriousness that she would have the chicken fingers with French fries, and could she please have extra ketchup. The waiter, who probably served senators and celebrities regularly, treated her request with the same grave consideration he'd give a wine order, promising the finest ketchup the establishment had to offer. After they'd all ordered, Ethan choosing the least expensive entree he could find, despite Lena's insistence that price didn't matter, an awkward silence settled over the table. They'd been so honest at the cafe, but here in this beautiful restaurant with the river flowing past and the weight of the week between them, words felt harder to find. I have to tell you something, Lena said finally, her fingers tracing patterns on the tablecloth, about what happened after we met on Tuesday. Ethan felt his chest tighten. Okay. The media found out about the river. Someone must have seen us at the hospital, or maybe one of the staff leaked it. I don't know. But Wednesday morning, there were reporters camped outside my building asking if it was true that I'd attempted suicide. But what did you tell them? Ethan asked quietly. Nothing at first. I had my PR team issue a statement saying it was a private medical matter and asking for respect. Lena's laugh was bitter. But that just made them dig harder. By Thursday, they'd found witnesses who saw you jump in after me, started calling you a hero, speculating about who you were and why you'd risked your life for a stranger. I'm not a hero, Ethan said automatically. I just did what anyone would do. But that's not true, and you know it. Most people would have called 911 and hoped for the best. You jumped into a freezing river without hesitation. Lena paused, her eyes meeting his. I wanted to tell you before you saw it yourself. There are articles about us, pictures someone took at the hospital. Your name is out there now. Ethan felt cold despite the warmth of the restaurant. Pictures of Maya? No, Lena said quickly. I made sure of that. Threatened legal action against any outlet that published images of a minor. But you, they have your name, where you work, speculation about your relationship to me. What kind of speculation? Lena's cheeks colored slightly. The kind that sells papers. Secret relationship, affair gone wrong. That's that sort of nonsense. I'm sorry. I never meant for you to get dragged into my mess. Ethan sat back, processing. He'd lived quietly for 3 years, deliberately staying under the radar, keeping his world small and manageable. Now strangers were writing about him, making up stories, invading the careful privacy he'd built. Are you mad? Lena asked, and there was real fear in her voice. I don't know, Ethan said honestly. I'm processing. This is a lot. I can make it stop, Lena said quickly. I can issue a statement, clarify everything, make it clear you're just a good Samaritan who happened to be in the right place at the right time. I can shut down the speculation. Can you? Ethan challenged gently. Or will that just make them more curious? Lena deflated slightly. You're probably right. Denying it will just fuel more stories. So we ignore it, Ethan said, surprised by his own certainty. Let them write whatever they want. People who know me will know the truth. The rest doesn't matter. You're taking this remarkably well. I'm terrified, Ethan admitted, but I'm also learning that running from scary things doesn't make them less scary. Just makes you tired. Maya had been unusually quiet, listening to the adults with that intense focus she got when processing important information. Now she spoke up, her voice small but clear. Are people going to be mean to Daddy because of you? The directness of the question made Lena flinch. I hope not. But yes, probably some people will. I'm sorry, Maya. That's not fair to either of you. It's okay, Maya said, though her face suggested it wasn't entirely okay. Daddy says we can't control what other people do, only how we respond. And we respond with dignity and kindness, even when people don't deserve it. Your mother taught her that, Ethan said quietly. Sarah believed that grace under pressure was the truest measure of character. She sounds like she was an incredible woman, Lena said. She was. She would have liked you, I think. Sarah had a soft spot for people who were hurting and trying to hide it. She could always see through the armor to the person underneath. Their food arrived, providing a welcome distraction from the heavy conversation. Maya dove into her chicken fingers with enthusiasm, pronouncing them indeed the best in the city. Ethan's steak was perfectly cooked, and he tried not to think about how much this single meal probably cost. Can I ask you something? Lena said after they'd been eating in comfortable silence for a few minutes. About Sarah. You've mentioned her several times, but I don't want to pry if it's too painful. It's always painful, Ethan said, but that doesn't mean I don't want to talk about her. What do you want to know? How did you meet? Ethan smiled, the memory still warm despite the years and grief. Construction site. I was working on a renovation of a law office building, and she was a paralegal at one of the firms. She came down to complain about the noise disrupting their work, and I was covered in drywall dust and probably smelled terrible. I tried to explain that we were on a schedule and couldn't just stop, and she threatened to file a formal complaint with my supervisor. That doesn't sound romantic, Maya interjected. It wasn't, not at first. Your mother was furious, and I was stubborn. We argued for 10 minutes before my boss intervened and worked out a compromise. But the next day, Sarah came back with coffee and donuts for the whole crew and apologized for being harsh. Said she'd been stressed about a case and took it out on us. And you fell in love with her because of donuts? Lena asked with a smile. I fell in love with her because she could admit when she was wrong, because she saw us as people worth apologizing to, not just workers to be managed, and because when I thanked her, she looked at me like I was interesting instead of invisible. Ethan hadn't talked about this in years, hadn't let himself remember the good parts because they made the loss hurt more. But sitting here with Lena and Maya, it felt safe to remember. I asked her out that day, and she said no. Said she didn't date guys from work sites because it always ended badly. So I waited until the job was done 3 months later, then showed up at her office with flowers and asked again. She said yes that time. Was she sick for a long time? Lena asked gently. Before she passed? 18 months from diagnosis to the end. Ovarian cancer, caught too late. She fought hard, did every treatment, never gave up hope. But sometimes fighting isn't enough. Ethan's voice cracked slightly. The worst part was watching her worry more about us than herself. Even when she could barely stand up, she was making me promise I'd take care of Maya, making me swear I wouldn't shut down after she was gone. But you did shut down, Lena said. It wasn't a judgment, just an observation. Yeah, for a while I did. Kept Maya alive and healthy, but emotionally I was barely present. Just going through the motions. It took almost a year before I could feel anything besides grief and terror. He looked at his daughter, who was watching him with sad but understanding eyes. I'm sorry for that, sweetheart. For all the times I was there, but not really there. You were grieving, Maya said simply. Mommy told me before she died that you'd need time to find yourself again. She said to be patient with you. Ethan's eyes burned. She said that to you? Maya nodded. Lots of things. She knew she was dying even when the doctors said there was still hope. She wrote me letters for when I'm older, and she made me promise to take care of you like you take care of me. You were 5 years old. She shouldn't have put that on you. She didn't put it on me. She trusted me. There's a difference. Maya took another chicken finger, somehow managing to be both profound and completely childlike in the same breath. Lena had tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry for both of you, for all you've lost. We're sorry for you too, Maya said. Losing your parents in a fire is really scary. Lena stiffened slightly, and Ethan realized his daughter was referring to the confession from the cafe. How did you... You told us, Maya said matter-of-factly, about the scars and feeling like you failed them even though you were just a kid. I shouldn't have shared that with you, Lena said. You're too young to carry that kind of burden. I'm too young for lots of things, Maya replied with the wisdom of someone who'd already carried too much. But I'd rather know the truth than have adults lie to protect me. Lies make you feel crazy. Truth makes you feel trusted. Lena looked at Ethan with something like awe. Is she always this insightful? Always. It's both a blessing and exhausting. They finished their meal while the conversation turned to lighter topics. Maya's school, her favorite subjects, the chapter book she was reading about a girl who could talk to animals. Lena listened with genuine interest, asking questions and engaging with Maya's rambling stories like they mattered. When dessert came, chocolate cake for Maya, creme brulee for Lena, and coffee for Ethan, the atmosphere had shifted into something comfortable and warm. The nervousness from earlier had dissolved, replaced by the easy familiarity of people who'd seen each other at their worst and chosen to stay anyway. I have a confession, Lena said as they were finishing dessert. Today was supposed to be a board meeting, a crucial one, about a merger that could reshape the entire company. I canceled it to be here. Ethan set down his coffee cup. Lena, if this was important, it was important, but so is this. She gestured between them. I've spent 15 years prioritizing work over everything else, missing birthdays, holidays, any chance at a personal life because there was always another deal, another meeting, another crisis that demanded my attention. And Wednesday, standing at that railing, I realized that none of it mattered. Not really. All that success, all those achievements, and I was still completely alone. You're not alone anymore, Maya said simply. No, Lena agreed, her voice soft. I'm not, and that terrifies me more than any boardroom ever has. Why? Ethan asked. Because work I understand. I know the rules, know how to win, know how to protect myself. But this? She looked between Ethan and Maya. Friendship, connection, letting people matter to me. I don't have rules for that. I don't know how to do it without getting hurt. You can't, Ethan said gently. That's the thing about caring about people. It always comes with the risk of pain. But the alternative is what you were doing Tuesday night, standing at a railing because success without connection is just another form of drowning. Lena was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing the edge of her dessert plate. There's something else I need to tell you, something that happened yesterday. The seriousness in her tone made Ethan tense. Okay. My board found out about the river incident. Not from the media, from someone at the hospital who recognized me. They called an emergency meeting to discuss whether I'm fit to continue as CEO. What? Ethan's voice came out sharper than he intended. They can. They have a duty to shareholders to ensure leadership stability, mental health concerns, potential liability, bad publicity. They had legitimate reasons to question my capacity. Lena's smile was tight. I walked into that boardroom yesterday knowing I might walk out unemployed. What happened? Maya asked, her dessert forgotten. I told them the truth, all of it, about my parents dying, about building the company as a way to justify my survival, about working myself into the ground because stopping meant feeling everything I'd been running from, about standing at that railing and realizing I'd built a prison instead of a life. Ethan couldn't breathe. What did they say? Most of them wanted me out immediately, said I was unstable, a risk, that the company needed steady leadership. But then Marcus Chen, he's been on the board since the beginning, he asked if anyone else in that room had ever felt like giving up. Asked if working yourself to exhaustion was really that different from what I'd contemplated doing. Lena's hands were shaking now, and without thinking, Ethan reached across the table and took one of them in his. She held on like he was the only thing keeping her anchored. 3 other board members admitted they'd struggled with depression. 2 had considered suicide at various points in their lives. 1 had actually attempted it and survived. It turned into this raw, honest conversation about the cost of success and the pressure we all put on ourselves to appear invincible. So they kept you? Maya asked. They voted to give me a month of medical leave with full support to get help. Mandatory therapy, reduced schedule when I return, and a requirement that I build a support system outside of work. Marcus said that if I was willing to get help, they were willing to stand by me. But if I refused treatment or showed signs of deteriorating further, they'd have no choice but to replace me. That's actually pretty reasonable, Ethan said. It is. More than reasonable. It's generous. But it also means I have to do the work, have to actually change, not just promise to change. And that's terrifying because I don't know if I can. You can, Maya said with absolute certainty. You're already doing it. You're here with us instead of at a meeting. You told the truth instead of hiding. You're learning. Lena's smile was watery. When did you become so wise? I told you I had to grow up fast. But that's okay. Being wise helps me take care of Daddy. Ethan squeezed Lena's hand. What does your treatment plan look like? I start therapy Monday with a trauma specialist. The board arranged for a comprehensive evaluation with a psychiatrist who specializes in high-functioning individuals with depression and PTSD. And they want me to, she paused, looking embarrassed. They want me to develop meaningful personal relationships outside of work. Said isolation is one of the biggest risk factors for what happened. So we're part of your treatment plan? Ethan said, trying to lighten the moment. No, you're part of my life. The treatment plan just acknowledges that I need to have a life worth living. Lena looked at him directly. I want to be clear about something. I'm not befriending you because my board mandated it, or because I'm trying to check off some box on a recovery checklist. I'm here because Tuesday night you saw me at my absolute worst and still treated me like I mattered. Because Wednesday at the cafe, you and Maya were more honest with me than anyone's been in years. Because for the first time since my parents died, I feel like I might actually deserve to be alive. The raw vulnerability in her voice cracked something open in Ethan's chest. He understood that feeling, the surprise of finding someone who made existence feel less like endurance and more like living. We're here because you make us feel less alone too, he said quietly. Maya and I, we've been surviving in our own little bubble for 3 years. Safe, but isolated. You remind us that there's a bigger world out there. That connection is worth the risk. They sat in silence for a moment, hands still linked across the table, Maya watching them both with those knowing eyes that saw too much. The waiter approached discreetly to ask if they needed anything else. Lena requested the check, and when it arrived, she handled it quickly before Ethan could even reach for his wallet. This was my invitation, she said firmly when he started to protest. And besides, I wanted to do this. Wanted to show you that friendship isn't transactional. I'm not buying your affection. I'm just grateful for your company. They left the restaurant and walked slowly back to the car, Maya between them, holding both their hands. The October air was crisp, carrying the smell of the river and the promise of winter coming. Can we walk by the water? Lena asked suddenly. Just for a minute? Ethan wanted to say no, wanted to keep Maya away from that dangerous edge, but he saw what Lena was doing, facing her fear head-on, refusing to let the river have power over her. Okay. but we stay back from the railing. They walked to the riverbank, keeping a safe distance from the edge, and stood looking at the dark water flowing past. It looked exactly the same as it had that Tuesday night, relentless, powerful, indifferent. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," Lena said to the river, her voice steady. "You're just water. My fear is what gave you power." "That's very brave," Maya said. "I'm learning from the best," Lena replied, looking at both of them. They stood there for a few more minutes, three people bound together by catastrophe and choice, watching the river flow past. It would always be there, Ethan realized. That darkness, that current, that potential for drowning. But standing here together, facing it instead of running, somehow made it less terrifying. The drive back to Ethan's apartment was quiet, Maya falling asleep against his shoulder, exhausted from the rich food and emotional intensity of the evening. When they pulled up to his building, Lena walked them to the door. "Thank you for tonight," she said, "for giving me a chance, for being honest, for showing me what healthy connection looks like. Thank you for the dinner and for trusting us with your truth." They stood in the doorway, awkward suddenly, unsure how to end the evening. Finally, Lena reached out and hugged him, a brief but tight embrace that spoke of gratitude and something more complicated. "I'll text you," she said, pulling back. "Please. And Lena, I'm proud of you for what you did in that boardroom, for choosing to get help instead of hiding." Her smile was genuine and reached her eyes. "I'm proud of me too. First time in a long time I've felt that." Ethan carried Maya upstairs, got her ready for bed while she was still half asleep, and tucked her in with a kiss to her forehead. Then he sat in the living room, processing everything that had happened. His phone buzzed with a text from Lena. "I meant what I said tonight. You and Maya aren't part of a treatment plan. You're part of my life now. If that's okay?" Ethan smiled and typed back, "It's more than okay. It's good. We're figuring this out together." Together. I like the sound of that. He was about to put his phone down when another message came through. This one longer. "I have my first therapy appointment Monday. I'm terrified, but I'm going to show up and do the work because you both deserve to have someone in your lives who's whole, not just surviving. Thank you for believing I can be that person." "You already are that person," Ethan wrote. "You're just learning to see what we already see." He went to bed that night with a strange feeling in his chest, something that felt suspiciously like hope. For 3 years, he'd focused solely on keeping Maya alive, on surviving each day, on managing grief and fear and exhaustion. Now, suddenly, there was someone else in their lives who mattered, someone who needed them and who they needed in return, someone who was broken like they were broken, but trying like they were trying. It should have felt like a burden. Instead, it felt like coming back to life. In her penthouse across the city, Lena Whitmore sat looking at the city lights and felt something similar. For the first time since her parents died, she wasn't alone with her demons. There were people who knew her truth and chose to stay anyway. The river kept flowing outside her window, dark and endless. But inside, something warm and fragile was beginning to grow. Something that looked like healing. Something that felt like home. Monday morning arrived with the kind of gray sky that matched Ethan's mood. He'd been awake since 4, unable to shake the feeling that something was coming, something that would test everything they'd been building over the past week. Maya had another cardiology appointment at 10, routine monitoring that never felt routine, and his phone had been strangely silent since Lena's early morning text saying she was heading to her first therapy session. He got Maya ready mechanically, both of them moving through their established routine with the practiced efficiency of people who'd done this too many times. Toast with peanut butter, her medications carefully measured, the backpack with emergency supplies that went everywhere they went. Normal on the surface, terror underneath. "You're worried," Maya observed, watching him over her orange juice. "Just want everything to go smoothly today." "You always say that, and it usually does." She paused. "Are you worried about me or about Lena?" The question stopped him. "Both, I guess. Is that okay?" "It's good. It means you have more than one person to care about now. Mommy would like that." They took the bus to Ravenport Children's Hospital, Maya's small hand in his, her head resting against his arm. She was tired, more tired than usual, and that sent alarm bells ringing through Ethan's head. Tired could mean nothing. Tired could mean everything.
Dr. Patel met them in the exam room with her usual warm professionalism, asking Maya about school while she set up the EKG. Ethan watched the familiar dance of electrodes and wires, trying to read the doctor's face for any sign of concern. "Her rhythm looks good," Dr. Patel said after studying the readout. "No significant changes from last month, but I want to run a few more tests. Maya mentioned she's been more fatigued lately?" "Just a little," Maya said before Ethan could answer. "I get tired faster when we walk places."
How much faster? Maya considered. Used to be able to walk to the library without stopping. Now I need to stop once.
It was such a small thing, such a tiny change that most people wouldn't even notice. But with Maya's condition, small changes could signal bigger problems. "Let's do a full workup," Dr. Patel said gently, meeting Ethan's eyes with understanding. "Blood work, echocardiogram, stress test. I want to be thorough." Ethan nodded, his throat too tight for words. Maya took his hand and squeezed it. "It's okay, Daddy. We've done this before." They had, too many times, but it never got easier. The test took hours. Maya was brave through all of it, barely flinching when they drew blood, staying perfectly still during the echo, pushing through the stress test even when Ethan could see exhaustion creeping across her face. By the time they were done, it was past 2 in the afternoon, and they were both wrung out. "Results will take a few days," Dr. Patel said.
But Maya, I want you taking it easy this week. No gym class, no running around at recess. If you feel tired, you rest. Understood? Yes, ma'am. They left the hospital into gray drizzle that matched the weight in Ethan's chest. His phone buzzed as they walked to the bus stop. "Lena." "How did the appointment go?" her text asked. Ethan hesitated, then decided on honesty. "More tests. Won't know anything for a few days. How was therapy?" The response took a while to come. "Hard. Really hard. But I'm glad I went. Can I see you both tonight? I just need to see you. Come for dinner. Nothing fancy. Just us." "That's exactly what I need." Ethan pocketed his phone and looked down at Maya, who was watching him with those two knowing eyes. "She's struggling," Maya said. It wasn't a question. "Yeah, I think she is." "Then we'll help her. That's what friends do." They stopped at this grocery store on the way home, Ethan stretching their budget to get ingredients for spaghetti. Maya's favorite, and easy enough that he couldn't mess it up, even while distracted. Maya helped him pick out garlic bread and the fancy Parmesan cheese she loved, her energy flagging noticeably by the time they reached the checkout. Back at the apartment, Ethan got Maya settled on the couch with her homework while he started dinner. The familiar routine of cooking helped settle his nerves. Browning meat, sautéing onions and garlic, the ritual of making something nourishing from simple ingredients. His phone rang. Not a text this time, but an actual call, from a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Carter, this is Jennifer Walsh from the Ravenport Chronicle. I was hoping to ask you a few questions about Lena Whitmore." Ethan's stomach dropped. "I have no comment. It'll just take a minute. Our readers are very interested in the man who saved one of the city's most prominent CEOs. Can you tell me about your relationship with Ms. Whitmore?" "We're friends, that's all. Now, if you'll excuse me, is it true you have a daughter with a serious medical condition? Some are suggesting Miss Whitmore is providing financial assistance in exchange for your discretion about what really happened at the river." The audacity of it, the cruelty, took his breath away. "That's absolutely not true. Lena doesn't owe me anything, and I don't want anything from her. We're friends, period. But you must admit it's unusual for someone of her status to befriend a construction worker, especially one with the financial pressures of a sick child." "This conversation is over," Ethan said, and hung up before he said something he'd regret. His hands were shaking. He leaned against the counter, trying to calm his racing heart, aware of Maya watching him from the couch with frightened eyes. "That was a reporter," he said, trying to keep his voice level. "Asking invasive questions about Lena. I'm sorry you had to hear that." "Are they going to keep calling?" "I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe." His phone rang again. Different number. He let it go to voicemail, then another call, and another. By the time Lena knocked on the door at 6, Ethan had received 11 calls from various media outlets, and his phone was buzzing with notifications from social media he barely used.
Someone had found his Facebook profile, and the comments were brutal, half calling him a hero, half suggesting he was a gold digger taking advantage of a vulnerable woman. He opened the door to find Lena looking as wrung out as he felt. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she wore yoga pants and a sweatshirt that looked like they'd been grabbed without thought. She took one look at his face and immediately pulled him into a hug.
"They got to you too," she said against his shoulder. "How bad is it on your end?" "My phone hasn't stopped ringing. Someone leaked photos from the hospital. Nothing identifiable of Maya, thank God, but definitely you and me. The board is furious. My therapist had to extend our session because I had a panic attack halfway through." She pulled back, her eyes searching his face. "I'm so sorry, Ethan. This is exactly what I was afraid would happen. They're destroying you because of me." "They're not destroying me. They're just being cruel. There's a difference." Maya appeared in the doorway, and Lena immediately crouched down to her level. "Hi, sweetheart. How are you feeling?" "Tired. We had lots of tests today." Maya studied Lena's face. "You look sad." "I am sad. And scared. And angry at people who are saying mean things about your dad." "People say mean things when they don't understand," Maya said, with the wisdom of someone who'd endured whispers about her sick heart and dead mother. "We don't have to listen to them." "You're absolutely right." Lena stood, squaring her shoulders like she was preparing for battle. "Can we talk? All of us?" They settled at the small kitchen table, Ethan serving up spaghetti while Lena wrapped her hands around a glass of water like she needed something to anchor her. "I had a choice to make today," she said quietly. "My PR team drafted a statement that would make this all go away. A carefully worded explanation that you were simply a good Samaritan who helped during a medical emergency, that we barely know each other, that any suggestions of a relationship are baseless speculation. They said if I release it, the media will lose interest and move on." "So release it," Ethan said. "Make it stop." "But it's a lie," Lena said, her eyes meeting his. "We're not strangers. You're not just some random person who helped me. You've become important to me. Both of you have. And releasing that statement would feel like I'm denying that, like I'm ashamed of knowing you." "Lena, if it protects you—" "I don't want protection at the cost of the truth," she interrupted. "I spent my whole life hiding behind carefully constructed lies. Pretending I was fine when I was falling apart, hiding my scars, my pain, my humanity. I told you I wanted to stop doing that. I meant it." "What are you saying?" Ethan asked carefully. "I'm saying I want to tell the truth. Not all of it. Your privacy and Maya's privacy matter more than my need for honesty. But I want to acknowledge that we're friends, that you saved my life, and I'm grateful. That I'm choosing to build a relationship with you because you make my life better." "That'll just make the media attention worse," Ethan pointed out. "Probably, but it'll also be authentic. And maybe, just maybe, it'll shut down the narrative that you're some opportunist taking advantage of me." Lena's voice hardened. "Because that narrative is garbage, and I won't let it stand." Maya had been eating her spaghetti and listening carefully. Now she set down her fork. "Will they leave us alone if you tell the truth?" "Eventually. The truth is boring. Speculation is exciting. Once I confirm we're just friends, there's no mystery left to chase." "Will they say mean things about you?" Maya asked. "Probably. Some people will think I'm foolish for befriending someone outside my social circle." Lena used air quotes with obvious distaste. "Others will suggest I'm having some kind of breakdown. But you know what? Let them. I'm in therapy now. I'm working on not caring what strangers think of me." "That's very brave," Maya said seriously. "I learned it from you, both of you." They ate in contemplative silence for a few minutes before Ethan spoke. "What did your therapist say about all of this?" Lena's laugh was brittle. "She said that my first instinct in crisis is still to run and hide, that releasing the denial statement would be running. She asked me what facing it would look like instead. And I realized that facing it means standing by the people who matter to me, means not letting fear dictate my choices, means accepting that being honest might be uncomfortable, but it's better than the alternative." Lena paused. "She also said that my need to protect you might be about wanting to protect myself, that if the media destroys our friendship, I have an excuse to go back to isolation without admitting I was too scared to try." The insight cut close to bone. Ethan saw the truth of it in her face, the fear that this was all too good to be true, that she'd sabotage it before it could hurt her. "We're not that fragile," he said quietly. "This friendship, whatever it is, it can withstand some bad press and ugly comments." "Can it?" Lena's voice was small. "Because I bring nothing but chaos into your life. Media attention, invasive questions, people questioning your motives. What if Maya gets hurt because of me? What if this stress affects her health?" "Stop," Ethan said firmly. "You don't get to make that decision for us. We're adults. Well, I'm an adult and Maya is terrifyingly mature for 7. We get to choose who we let into our lives, and we're choosing you." "Why?" The question came out as almost a whisper. "Why would you choose this? Choose me and all the complications I bring?" Maya answered before Ethan could. "Because you're sad like we're sad. And when sad people find each other, they don't have to be sad alone anymore. That's what Daddy told me after Mommy died. That we'd find other people who understood, and they'd help us carry the heavy things." Lena's eyes filled with tears. "I'm one of your heavy things?" "No," Maya corrected gently. "You're one of the people helping us carry them, and we want to help you carry yours." The simple honesty of it broke something open in Lena. She started crying, really crying, not the careful tears she'd shed before, but deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. Ethan moved his chair closer and pulled her against his shoulder while she cried, one hand stroking her hair, murmuring the same comfort he'd given Maya through countless hard nights. "I'm sorry," Lena gasped between sobs. "I'm so sorry. I don't usually fall apart like this." "It's okay. You're safe here. Let it out." And she did. Weeks or maybe years of carefully controlled emotion pouring out in that small kitchen, witnessed by a man who understood grief and a child who understood pain. When she finally quieted, hiccuping into Ethan's shoulder, exhausted and spent, the spaghetti had gone cold on the table. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not making me pretend to be okay." "We never want you to pretend," Ethan said. "Not with us." Lena pulled back, wiping at her face with her sleeve. "I look like a disaster." "You look human," Maya corrected. "That's better." They reheated the spaghetti and ate together, the atmosphere lighter despite the tears. Lena asked about Maya's appointment, and Ethan found himself sharing his fears about the fatigue, the waiting for results, the constant terror that one day the tests would show something they couldn't fix. "How do you live with that?" Lena asked. "That constant fear?" "You learn to live alongside it instead of letting it consume you. Some days are harder than others. Some days I can barely breathe for the anxiety. But then Maya does something amazing, gets an A on a test, laughs at something funny, shows me a drawing she's proud of, and I remember that fear doesn't get to steal her childhood. We live despite the fear, not because of it." "I want to learn how to do that," Lena said, "to live despite the fear." "You're already doing it. Therapy, being honest, showing up here even when you're falling apart. That's all living despite fear." After dinner, they moved to the living room. Maya curled up between them on the couch, clearly exhausted from the day's tests, and Ethan put on a movie she loved. Within minutes, she was asleep, her head on Lena's lap. Lena stroked Maya's hair absently, her eyes distant. "My therapist asked me today if I thought I deserved to be happy." "What did you say?" "I said I didn't know. And she said that was the real work, learning to believe I'm worthy of good things without having to earn them through suffering." Lena looked at him. "Do you think you deserve to be happy?" Ethan considered the question. "I think I deserve to not be miserable. Whether that's the same as deserving happiness, I don't know. But I'm learning that happiness isn't something you deserve or don't deserve. It's something you choose when you can. And right now, are you choosing it?" He looked at his daughter sleeping peacefully, at the woman who'd come into their lives through catastrophe and stayed through choice, at the small warm apartment that had been just a survival space but was starting to feel like a home again. "Yeah," he said softly. "I think I am." They sat in comfortable silence, the movie playing on the television, rain pattering against the windows. Ethan's phone buzzed periodically with more calls and messages, but he ignored them all. This moment, this quiet, peaceful moment, mattered more than whatever chaos waited outside. I'm going to release a statement tomorrow, Lena said eventually, acknowledging our friendship, thanking you for saving my life, and making it clear that any speculation beyond that is baseless. I'm also going to announce I'm taking medical leave and starting therapy. My PR team will hate it, but my therapist thinks it's the right move. You're going public about the therapy? I'm going public about being human, about struggling and getting help and refusing to be ashamed of either. She paused. Is that okay? Will it make things harder for you? Probably, but like you said, let them talk. The people who matter know the truth. The people who matter, Lena repeated softly. I like that. For so long, I thought everyone mattered. Every critic, every competitor, every person with an opinion about my life. It's exhausting trying to please everyone. So stop trying. Please the people you love and who love you back. Everyone else is just noise. Lena was quiet for a long moment. I haven't said that word in a long time. Love. It feels dangerous. It is dangerous. It's terrifying. But it's also the only thing that makes any of this worthwhile. She looked at him, and something passed between them. Understanding, recognition, the acknowledgement of something neither was quite ready to name. Whatever was growing between them was more than friendship, but neither of them had the courage yet to say it aloud. I should go, Lena said eventually. Let you get Maya to bed properly. You could stay, Ethan offered, then immediately felt his face heat. I mean, on the couch. If you don't want to face your empty apartment tonight. Just as friends. Lena smiled, and it was genuine. Thank you, but I need to learn to be alone without being lonely. That's what my therapist said. I need to make my home feel like a home instead of a prison. That's probably wise. They carefully extracted themselves from the couch without waking Maya. Ethan walked Lena to the door, hyper-aware of how small his apartment was. How close they were standing in the narrow hallway. Thank you for tonight, Lena said, for letting me fall apart and not running away. Thank you for trusting us enough to fall apart. That takes courage. Or stupidity. I haven't decided which yet. Courage, Ethan said firmly. Definitely courage. Lena reached up and hugged him, and this time it lasted longer. This time, Ethan let himself relax into it, let himself feel the comfort of holding someone who wasn't his daughter, who wasn't his responsibility, but his choice. Whatever happens tomorrow when the statement goes out, Lena murmured against his shoulder, I want you to know I don't regret any of this. Not the river, not the hospital, not meeting you and Maya. Even if the whole world thinks I'm crazy, I know the truth. You saved my life in more ways than one. You saved mine too, Ethan admitted. I didn't realize how small my world had gotten until you showed up and reminded me there was more to life than just surviving. They pulled apart slowly, reluctantly. Lena's eyes were still red from crying, but clear and focused. I'll text you tomorrow, after the statement goes out. It might get messy. We can handle messy. She left, and Ethan stood in the doorway watching her walk down the hallway to the elevator. She turned once, gave a small wave, and then she was gone. He went back inside to find Maya awake on the couch, watching him with knowing eyes. You like her, she said. It wasn't a question. Yeah, I do. Like how you liked Mommy. The question stopped him. Not the same. Nothing could be the same as what your mother and I had. But yeah, I like her. Is that okay? Maya considered this seriously. Mommy told me before she died that she wanted you to be happy again someday. She said you had too much love in your heart to keep it locked away forever. Ethan's vision blurred. She said that? In one of the letters. The one I opened on my last birthday. Maya paused. She said loving someone new wouldn't mean you loved her less. It would mean you loved her enough to keep living the way she'd want you to. He pulled his daughter into his arms and held her tight, breathing in strawberry shampoo and the sweet scent of childhood that wouldn't last forever. You're too smart for your own good, you know that? I know, but it helps sometimes. Being smart about the hard stuff makes it less scary. They got ready for bed together, Maya's bedtime routine as familiar as breathing. But tonight, tucking her in, Ethan felt something shift. The apartment didn't feel quite so empty. The future didn't feel quite so terrifying.
For the first time since Sarah died, he could imagine possibility instead of just survival. "Daddy," Maya said sleepily, "I'm glad Lena found us, even if she came the scary way." "Me too, sweetheart." "Me too." He turned out her light and retreated to his own room, checking his phone one last time before bed. Lena had texted, "Home safe. Apartment still feels empty but less lonely knowing you're out there. Sleep well." Ethan smiled and typed back, "Same."
We'll get through tomorrow together, whatever comes. Together. I'm still getting used to that word. So am I. But I think I like it. He put his phone down and lay in the dark, listening to the sounds of the city outside his window. Somewhere out there, reporters were crafting stories about him and Lena. Tomorrow those stories would go public, and their fragile new connection would be tested. But tonight, in the quiet dark, Ethan let himself feel something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. Not the desperate hope that Maya would stay healthy or that catastrophe could be avoided, but the quiet hope that life might hold more than just endurance. That connection was possible. That healing could happen. That love, in whatever form it took, was worth the risk of pain. The river kept flowing past the city, dark and relentless. But Ethan wasn't standing at its edge anymore, contemplating the depths. He was here, in this small apartment, with his daughter sleeping peacefully down the hall and a woman across the city who'd chosen honesty over safety. And for now, that was enough. The statement went live at 9 the next morning, and by 9:15, Ethan's phone had exploded. He sat at the kitchen table staring at the screen while Maya ate her cereal, watching the notifications cascade in faster than he could read them. Lena's words were simple and devastating in their honesty. She acknowledged the river incident, confirmed she'd been struggling with depression and trauma from her parents' death, thanked Ethan Carter for saving her life without expectation of reward, and announced she was taking medical leave to focus on her mental health. She described their friendship as genuine and valuable, stated firmly that any romantic speculation was false, and ended with a plea for privacy for both families, particularly for Ethan's young daughter. The response was immediate and polarized. Half the internet seemed to applaud her honesty and courage. The other half tore her apart with the kind of cruelty that only anonymity could enable. "She's using mental health as an excuse for incompetence," one comment read. "Finally, a CEO being honest about struggling. This is brave," said another. "That construction worker is clearly taking advantage of a vulnerable woman. Maybe he's just a decent human being who helped someone in crisis." Ethan closed the app before he could read more. His hands were shaking. "Is it bad?" Maya asked quietly. "Some people are kind. Some people are cruel. That's just how the world works, sweetheart." His phone rang, the construction site foreman. "Carter, we need to talk. Some reporters showed up here this morning asking about you. It's disrupting the work. I'm going to need you to take a few days off until this blows over." Ethan's stomach dropped. "You're suspending me?" "Just a few days. With pay," the foreman added quickly. "You're a good worker, Ethan, but I can't have cameras and reporters all over an active construction site. It's a safety issue." "I understand," Ethan said, though he didn't. Not really. He understood practically, but the rejection still stung. After he hung up, he sat staring at nothing while Maya watched him with worried eyes. "You lost your job because of Lena," she said. "Just temporarily. It'll be fine." "Will it?" Before Ethan could answer, his phone rang again. This time it was Lena, and he answered immediately. "Have you seen the comments?" she asked without preamble, her voice tight with stress. "Some of them. Are you okay?" "No. Yes. I don't know." She took a shaky breath. "My therapist said this would be hard but necessary, that hiding the truth was killing me. But Ethan, they're saying terrible things about you, about Maya. Someone found out about her medical condition, and they're suggesting I'm paying for her treatment in exchange for your silence about what really happened at the river." "None of that's true." "I know that. You know that. But how do we make them understand?" "We don't," Ethan said firmly. "We can't control what people think or say. We can only control our own truth. You said what needed to be said. Now we wait for it to blow over." "What if it doesn't blow over? What if this follows you forever?" "Then it follows me. I'll survive it. We both will." There was a long pause. "I just got a call from my board. They want an emergency meeting. They're threatening to force me to resign, saying the statement was reckless and damaging to the company's reputation. What are you going to do? Fight. I'm not running anymore. If they want me gone, they'll have to fire me. But I'm not resigning because I told the truth about struggling. The steel in her voice made something in Ethan's chest expand. Good. Don't let them intimidate you. Will you come with me to the meeting? I know it's asking a lot, but I need someone who believes in me there. Ethan looked at Maya, who was watching him intently. She nodded before he could even ask. When? 2 hours. I'll send a car. We'll be ready. After he hung up, Maya came around the table and climbed into his lap, something she rarely did anymore, claiming she was too big. But right now she was small and scared and needed comfort as much as he needed to give it. This is getting really complicated, she said against his shoulder. Yeah, it is. Are you sorry that you jumped in the river? Ethan thought about that question seriously. His life had been turned upside down. He'd lost work, gained unwanted attention, been dragged into a world he didn't understand and didn't belong in. But he also had Lena, complicated, broken, brave Lena, who'd cracked open his carefully controlled world and reminded him that surviving and living were two different things. No, he said honestly. I'm not sorry. Are you? Maya pulled back to look at him. No. I like having Lena, even if she makes things messy. Me too, sweetheart, me too. They got dressed in their best clothes, Ethan in the funeral shirt again, Maya in her purple dress. When the car arrived, they climbed in to find Lena already there, looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine despite the shadows under her eyes. She wore a sharp gray suit that screamed power and control, her hair pulled back severely, her makeup perfect. But her hands were shaking. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. I know this is asking too much. It's not, Ethan said. We're in this together, remember? The Whitmore Technologies building was glass and steel and intimidation, rising 40 stories above downtown Ravenport. Ethan felt desperately out of place walking through the lobby with its marble floors and modern art, aware of every head turning to look at them. Ignore them, Lena murmured, taking his arm. They don't matter. They rode the elevator to the top floor in tense silence. Maya held Ethan's hand so tightly he could feel her pulse racing. When the doors opened, a severe-looking woman in an expensive suit was waiting. They're ready for you, Ms. Whitmore. But I should warn you, they're not happy. Neither am I, Lena said coolly. Let's get this over with. The boardroom was everything Ethan expected. Massive windows overlooking the city, a table that could seat 20, and 12 powerful people arranged like judges preparing to deliver a verdict. They looked at Ethan and Maya with barely concealed contempt. Ms. Whitmore, an older man at the head of the table began, this is a board meeting, not a family gathering. Your guests will need to wait outside. Mr. Hendricks, these are the people at the center of the controversy you're so concerned about. I thought you might want to meet them before passing judgment. Lena's voice was ice. This is Ethan Carter and his daughter Maya. Ethan saved my life. They're here because I asked them to be. This is highly irregular, another board member protested. So is calling an emergency meeting to pressure your CEO into resigning, Lena shot back. Shall we discuss irregular behavior, or shall we address the actual issues? Ethan watched her transform into someone he'd only glimpsed before, powerful, commanding, utterly in control despite the circumstances. This was the woman who'd built a technology empire from nothing. This was the CEO who commanded respect through sheer force of will. Very well, Hendricks said coldly. Your statement this morning was reckless and damaging. You've made the company's stock price drop 3%, triggered dozens of investor calls demanding explanations, and associated our brand with mental health issues and suicide attempts. This is unacceptable. What's unacceptable, Lena said, her voice dangerously quiet, is that we live in a world where being honest about struggling is somehow more damaging than lying about it. What's unacceptable is that admitting I needed help is seen as weakness rather than strength. The optics are that your CEO is human, Lena interrupted, that I struggle like millions of other people struggle, that I got help instead of suffering in silence. And if that makes investors uncomfortable,
Perhaps they need to examine why honesty about mental health is more threatening than the alternative. Marcus Chen, the board member who'd supported her before, spoke up. Lena, we understand what you're trying to do, but bringing Mr. Carter and his daughter to a board meeting crosses professional boundaries. It suggests the relationship is more than you've publicly stated. The relationship is exactly what I've stated. Friendship. Ethan and Maya have become important to me. They've shown me what genuine human connection looks like. And yes, that's personal, but it doesn't affect my ability to run this company. Doesn't it? Hendricks challenged. You've canceled crucial meetings, made public statements without board approval, and now you're parading your personal life in front of us. This isn't the behavior of someone fit to lead. Ethan had been silent, but now he found his voice. Excuse me, but I need to say something. All eyes turned to him. He felt Maya squeeze his hand, lending him courage. I'm just a construction worker, he began. I don't understand your world or your business, but I understand people. And what I see when I look at Lena is someone who's been drowning in success that felt like failure. Someone who built something incredible but forgot to build a life worth living. She stood at a railing and let go because she couldn't carry the weight anymore. And you know what? That's not weakness. That's what happens when you demand perfection from people who are fundamentally, beautifully human. The room was silent. Ethan continued, his voice gaining strength. You want to fire her for being honest? For admitting she struggled and got help? Then go ahead. But know that you're sending a message to every person in this company that suffering in silence is preferable to seeking support. That perfection is more important than humanity. Is that really the company you want to be? Mr. Carter, Hendricks said icily, you have no standing to... He has every standing, Marcus interrupted. He saved our CEO's life. I think that earns him the right to speak. I'm 7, Maya said suddenly, her small voice cutting through the tension. And I know more about being sick and scared than any of you. My mommy died when I was 5. My heart doesn't work right. I live with being afraid every single day. But you know what my daddy taught me? That asking for help isn't giving up. It's being brave enough to admit you can't do everything alone. She looked directly at Hendricks with those unnervingly mature eyes. Lena is brave. She told the truth when lying would have been easier. She asked for help when she could have kept pretending. If you punish her for that, you're telling everyone that being brave is wrong. Is that what you want? The silence that followed was deafening. Several board members looked distinctly uncomfortable. Hendricks's face had gone red. This is absurd, he blustered. We're being lectured by a child who understands courage better than you do, apparently, Marcus said quietly. I move that we table this discussion and reconvene in a week. Give the media attention time to settle, give Lena time to continue her treatment, and give ourselves time to remember that this company was built on innovation and risk-taking. Forcing out our CEO, because she was honest about struggling, seems neither innovative nor wise. I second, another board member said. The vote was close, 7-5 in favor of tabling. Hendricks looked furious, but the motion carried. The meeting adjourned with strained politeness and barely concealed hostility. Outside the boardroom, Lena leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. I can't believe you both just did that. Did what? Ethan asked. Fought for me, defended me, made a room full of powerful people actually think about what they were doing. She opened her eyes, and they were bright with tears. No one's ever done that before. Ever. Well, someone should have, Maya said matter-of-factly. You're worth fighting for. The simple statement made Lena's composure crack. She sank down to Maya's level and pulled her into a fierce hug. Thank you for being brave when I couldn't be. You were brave too, Maya said against her shoulder. You just needed help remembering it. They left the building together, and this time Ethan didn't care who saw or what they thought. He held Lena's hand on one side, Maya's on the other, and walked through that lobby like they belonged there. In the car, Lena's phone started ringing. Her PR team, her assistant, reporters wanting comments. She silenced it and looked at Ethan and Maya. I need to not be alone right now, she said quietly. Can I stay with you, just for today? I promise I won't fall apart again. You can fall apart all you want, Ethan said. That's what we're here for. Back at the apartment, Lena shed the power suit for borrowed sweats and a t-shirt, scrubbed off the severe makeup, and transform back into someone real and vulnerable. They ordered pizza, Maya's request, and sat on the floor eating straight from the box like the formal dinner had never happened. "I should check my phone," Lena said without making any move to do so. "The board will want updates. The PR team will have damage control strategies." "Or you could just be here," Ethan suggested. "Let tomorrow's problems wait until tomorrow." "Is that allowed?" "It's necessary. You can't fight every battle every minute.
Sometimes you have to rest." So they rested. They watched movies Maya picked, stupid comedies that required no thought. They played board games that Lena was terrible at, making Maya giggle at her competitive frustration. They existed in the moment without worrying about what came next. Around 8, Ethan's phone rang. "Dr. Patel." His stomach dropped. "I need to take this." He stepped into the bedroom, his heart pounding. "Dr. Patel?" "Mr. Carter, I have Maya's test results. I wanted to call you directly rather than wait for the follow-up appointment." "Is it bad?" "It's concerning but manageable. Maya's heart function has declined slightly. Not dramatically, but enough that we need to adjust her medication and increase monitoring. I want to see her weekly for the next month, and we may need to consider some lifestyle modifications." Ethan sank onto the bed, relief and fear warring in his chest. Manageable. Not catastrophic, but not good either. What kind of modifications? More rest, reduced physical activity, possible dietary changes? I'll go over everything in detail at her appointment Friday. But Mr. Carter, Ethan, this doesn't mean she's in immediate danger. It means we're being proactive about changes before they become serious. Okay, we can do that. How's she been emotionally? Any additional stress I should know about? Ethan laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Our lives have been pretty chaotic lately. Media attention, life changes. Could that affect her heart? Stress affects everything, but don't blame yourself. Sometimes these changes happen regardless of external factors. Just try to keep her environment as calm and stable as possible going forward. After he hung up, Ethan sat staring at his hands, trying to process. Maya's heart was getting worse. Not drastically, but enough. And here he was, letting their lives get complicated with Lena and media attention and boardroom drama when his daughter needed stability. Lena appeared in the doorway. "What's wrong?" "Maya's test results. Her heart function has declined. Nothing catastrophic, but it's not good." "Oh God. Ethan, I'm so sorry. This is my fault, isn't it? The stress from all this." "Stop," he said tiredly. "The doctor said these changes might have happened anyway. We can't know for sure." "But we can't know they wouldn't have happened if I'd stayed out of your lives either." Ethan looked at her standing in his doorway, wearing his old clothes, her perfect facade stripped away to show the frightened woman underneath. He thought about the past week, the dinners, the honesty, the feeling of not being alone anymore. He thought about Maya's smile when Lena arrived, the way his daughter had blossomed having another adult who cared about her in their lives. "Do you want to leave?" he asked directly. "Walk away before this gets more complicated?" Lena was quiet for a long moment. "No, I don't want to leave, but I also don't want to hurt Maya." "Then don't. Stay and help us manage this. Be part of our lives in a real way, not just when it's convenient or easy. That's what family does." "Family," Lena repeated softly. "Is that what we are? I don't know what else to call it. You're not just my friend, Lena. You've become something more important than that. You're someone Maya and I both need, someone who makes our lives better even when they're also more complicated." "I've never been someone's family before," Lena admitted. "Not since my parents died. I don't know if I know how." "Neither do I. I'm figuring it out as I go, but I know this. Families show up. They fight for each other. They tell the truth even when it's hard, and they don't run when things get difficult." Lena crossed the room and sat beside him on the bed, taking his hand in hers. "I'm terrified of this, of caring this much, of needing you both. What if I mess it up? What if you don't? What if this is exactly what all of us needed, broken people finding each other and choosing to stay anyway? You really want this? Want me with all my chaos and damaged history and complicated life?" Ethan turned to face her fully, seeing the fear and hope warring in her expression. "I jumped into a freezing river for you before I even knew your name.
I'm not going to walk away now that I actually know who you are. Something shifted in Lena's expression, the last wall crumbling, the final defense dropping away. She leaned forward and kissed him, gentle and questioning, giving him every opportunity to pull back. He didn't pull back. He kissed her like she was air and he'd been drowning, like she was warmth and he'd been frozen, like she was exactly what he hadn't known he needed until she fell into his life from a railing beside a dark river. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lena rested her forehead against his. I'm still going to mess this up sometimes, she whispered. I'm going to be difficult and complicated and scared. I'm going to be overprotective and closed off and terrified of losing the people I love, Ethan replied. We're both disasters, but maybe disasters who fit together. Daddy? Maya's voice came from the doorway. They pulled apart to find her standing there in her pajamas, looking at them with those knowing eyes. Are you kissing? Yes, Ethan said, because there was no point lying to a child who saw everything. Good, Maya said simply. Lena, are you going to stay tonight? Lena looked at Ethan, uncertain. He nodded. Yeah, sweetheart, I'm going to stay tonight. Are you going to stay other nights too, like lots of nights? Would that be okay with you? Maya considered this with the seriousness she gave all important questions. Are you going to make Daddy happy? I'm going to try my best. Are you going to help take care of me when I'm sick? Absolutely. Are you going to love us even when we're difficult? Lena's eyes filled with tears. Yes. Even when you're difficult, especially when you're difficult. Then it's okay. You can stay. Maya paused. But you're not replacing my mommy. Nobody gets to do that. I wouldn't dream of it, Lena said gently. Your mommy will always be your mommy. I'm just someone who loves you and your dad and wants to be part of your family, if that's okay. It's okay, Maya said. Then, with the emotional complexity of a child who'd already lost too much, she added, I think Mommy would like you. She always said Daddy needed someone who understood that being strong sometimes means admitting when you're not.
They got Maya settled for bed together, both of them tucking her in, kissing her forehead, promising everything would be okay, even though none of them could be certain it would be. But promising anyway, because sometimes hope was more important than certainty. After Maya fell asleep, Ethan and Lena sat on the couch in the quiet living room, her head on his shoulder, their fingers intertwined. I need to tell you something, Lena said quietly, about the scars I mentioned, the ones from the fire. You don't have to. I want to. I've hidden them my whole adult life, worn long sleeves, avoided situations where people might see, built my entire life around concealing this part of myself. She pulled back and slowly, carefully, pushed up the sleeve of her borrowed shirt. The scars covered her left shoulder and upper arm, angry, twisted tissue that spoke of unimaginable pain. Ethan's breath caught, not from revulsion, but from understanding the weight she'd carried, hiding this constant reminder of loss and survival. They're from trying to pull my parents out, Lena said, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. I got my mom's hand, tried to drag her to the window, but the beam fell and I had to let go. The burns are from where the fire caught my nightgown. Ethan lifted her arm gently and kissed the scarred skin. Thank you for trusting me with this. You trusted me with Maya's medical records, with your grief about Sarah, with everything that matters most to you. The least I could do was show you the parts of myself I usually hide. They're not shameful, Lena. They're proof you survived, proof you fought for the people you loved. That's what my therapist said, that scars are evidence of healing, not failure. Lena pulled her sleeve back down, not hiding, but simply covering. I'm working on believing it. They sat in comfortable silence for a while before Lena spoke again. What happens now? With us? With all of this? Honestly, I don't know. We figure it out as we go. You keep going to therapy, I keep taking care of Maya, we both keep showing up for each other even when it's hard. That simple? That complicated, Ethan corrected with a slight smile. Nothing about this is simple, but maybe it doesn't have to be. Lena's phone, which she'd left on silent, lit up with a notification. She glanced at it and her expression changed. The stock price recovered. It's actually up 0.5% from where it was before my statement.
She scrolled through more messages. And there's a flood of emails from employees saying they appreciated my honesty. Several saying they've struggled too and felt less alone knowing their CEO understood. See, the truth didn't destroy you, it freed you. Some of the board members are still calling for my resignation.
Some people will always resist change, but Marcus and the others who voted to table the discussion, they saw what matters. Give it time. Time. They had time now, Ethan realized. Time to build something real instead of rushing toward catastrophe or running from connection. Time to let Maya's health stabilize with the new medications. Time to let Lena heal through therapy and genuine relationships. Time to figure out what this was between them. This thing that had started with drowning and transformed into something that felt remarkably like hope. 3 months later, Ethan stood at the same railing where it had all begun, looking at the river that had almost claimed Lena's life. It was early January, the water partially frozen at the edges, the air cold enough to burn his lungs. But the sun was shining, and beside him stood two of the most important people in his world. Maya, bundled in a purple winter coat, was feeding ducks that paddled in the unfrozen sections of the river. She looked healthier than she had in October, the new medication regimen working, her energy slowly returning. Weekly appointments had become bi-weekly, and while her condition would always require management, the immediate crisis had passed. Lena stood on his other side, her hand in his, looking at the water without fear. She'd continued therapy, reduced her work hours, and slowly rebuilt her life with actual balance. The board had voted to keep her on as CEO with conditions she'd not only met, but exceeded. More importantly, she'd stopped measuring her worth by her productivity and started measuring it by her connections. "I need to ask you something," Ethan said quietly, while Maya was distracted with the ducks. Lena turned to him, and he saw curiosity and something else in her eyes. Trust maybe, or the beginning of something deeper. "The apartment is getting crowded," he began. "With you staying over most nights, your stuff everywhere, Maya asking why you have to leave for work meetings. Are you asking me to move out?" Lena's voice was carefully neutral. "I'm asking you to move in. Officially. Or we could get a bigger place together, something that's ours instead of mine. I don't care about the logistics. I want to stop pretending this is temporary. Want to build something permanent if you want that too." Lena was quiet for so long that Ethan's heart started to sink. Then she smiled, and it was radiant. "I bought a house," she said. "What?" "Last week. I've been waiting for the right time to tell you. It's in Riverside Heights, near Maya's school. 4 bedrooms, a backyard, room for all of us. I was going to ask if you'd consider living there. With me. Both of you." Ethan stared at her. "You bought a house for us?" "I bought a house for me to have a home instead of just a place to sleep. But yes, I bought it hoping you'd both be part of that home." She paused. "Unless that's too fast, too presumptuous, I can sell it, and we can figure something else out." He kissed her, stopping the worried words. When he pulled back, they were both smiling. "Show me the house." "Now?" "Right now." They collected Maya, who was thrilled at the idea of a surprise, and drove to Riverside Heights. The house was beautiful, not ostentatious despite Lena's wealth, but warm and welcoming, with big windows and a garden that would be stunning in spring. "There's a room that could be perfect for you," Lena told Maya, showing her a bedroom painted soft lavender with built-in bookshelves. "And the backyard has space for a swing set if you want one." Maya's eyes went wide. "Really? Really? I was thinking we could pick one out together." While Maya explored every corner of her potential room, Ethan and Lena stood in the master bedroom, looking out the window at the river visible in the distance. "I want to be able to see it," Lena explained. "The river. I don't want to hide from what happened there or pretend it didn't change everything. It's part of our story now." "Our story," Ethan repeated. "I like the sound of that." "There's something else," Lena said, turning to face him. "Something I've been wanting to say but didn't know how." "Just say it. We're past the point of careful words." "I love you." The words came out in a rush, like she'd been holding them back for too long. "I love you and Maya and the life we're building together. I love that you see me at my worst and stay anyway. I love that you're teaching me what healthy love looks like.
I love that I wake up excited to see you instead of dreading another empty day. Ethan pulled her close, his heart so full it hurt. I love you too.
I didn't think I could love anyone again after Sarah, but you showed me that the heart has room for multiple truths. I can miss my wife and love you. I can honor my past and build a future. You taught me that. We taught each other, Lena corrected. I learned from you how to be vulnerable and brave. You learned from me that it's okay to want more than just survival. Maya appeared in the doorway, holding a set of house keys Lena had apparently left for her to find. Are these ours? If you want them to be, Lena said. If you're comfortable moving here, starting this next chapter together. Maya looked between them, her expression serious. Will we still visit Mommy's grave? I don't want to forget her. Every Sunday, just like always, Ethan promised. And we'll bring Lena with us if you want. She's not replacing your mom, sweetheart. She's adding to our family. And you'll still be just my dad. And Lena will be... Maya paused, working through the complexity.
What will you be? Lena crouched down to Maya's level. I'll be whatever you need me to be. A friend, a bonus mom, just Lena. You get to decide. Maya thought about this with her characteristic seriousness. Then she launched herself at Lena, wrapping her arms around her neck. You're my Lena, she said firmly, and I love you even though you're not Mommy. Is that okay? That's more than okay, Lena said, her voice thick with tears. That's perfect. They moved in over the next month, blending their lives in ways both practical and profound. Ethan's worn furniture mixed with Lena's expensive pieces, creating something uniquely theirs. Maya's artwork went up on the walls alongside Lena's collected photography. The kitchen became a collaboration. Ethan's simple cooking style meeting Lena's willingness to learn and frequent disasters that ended in laughter and takeout. The media attention faded as Lena had predicted, replaced by new scandals and newer stories.
Occasionally someone would recognize them, ask about the river incident, but mostly the world moved on. The people who mattered knew their truth. The rest was just noise. Lena's therapy continued, and she invited Ethan to some sessions to work through their relationship dynamics to make sure they were building something healthy instead of just clinging to each other out of shared trauma. They learned to fight productively, to communicate clearly, to give each other space when needed while maintaining connection. Maya's health stabilized, though it would always require vigilance. But they faced the appointments and medication adjustments together now. Lena learning the medical terminology and asking questions the doctors appreciated. She was there for the scary moments and the victories, fully invested in Maya's well-being. 6 months after moving in together, on a warm June evening, Lena asked Ethan to walk with her to the river. Maya was at a sleepover, her first, a milestone that felt enormous, and they had the rare luxury of time alone. They stood at the railing where everything had started, the water flowing past in the last light of day. Lena had insisted they return here periodically, refusing to let fear reclaim this space. I have something to tell you, she said, and there was nervousness in her voice that made Ethan's heart skip. Okay. The board offered me a promotion, chairman of the board stepping back from day-to-day CEO operations. I'd still be involved, but with more flexibility, more balance. Marcus would take over as CEO. That's incredible. What did you say? I said yes, but that's not the important part. She turned to face him fully. I said yes because I want more time for this. For us. For building a life that's about more than work. She paused. And because I want to adopt Maya. If you'll let me. If she wants that. Ethan felt like the ground had shifted beneath him. You want to adopt her? I love her like she's mine. I want to make it official. Want her to know she has 2 parents who are fully committed to her, legally and emotionally. I know it's huge and we should probably talk to her first, and maybe I'm overstepping. We should ask her, Ethan interrupted gently. But Lena, if she says yes, and I think she will, then yes. 1,000 times yes. They asked Maya together the next morning over pancakes. Her reaction was immediate and enthusiastic. She'd been calling Lena my Lena for months, and making it official just made sense to her 7-year-old logic. The adoption process took months, but by Maya's 8th birthday in September, it was final. They celebrated with a small party in the backyard. Just the 3 of them, Sarah's parents who'd embraced Lena with surprising warmth,
and a few of Maya's school friends. That night, after the guests left and Maya was asleep, Ethan and Lena sat on the back porch watching the sunset.
I keep waiting for something to go wrong, Lena admitted, for this to be too good to be true.
Bad things will still happen, Ethan said honestly. Maya will have health scares. We'll fight. Life will throw challenges at us, but we'll face them together. Together. I still can't believe I have that. A year ago, I was standing at a railing, ready to let go of everything, and now I have everything I never knew I needed. Do you ever regret it? That night? Lena considered the question seriously. I regret the pain I caused, to you, to Maya, to everyone who worried, but I don't regret where it led. Sometimes we have to break completely to rebuild into something stronger. We're stronger now, all of us. Yeah, we are. The years passed in the way years do when you're building a life, fast and slow simultaneously, full of mundane moments and extraordinary ones. Maya grew, her health managed but always monitored.
Lena balanced work and family with the dedication she'd once reserved only for Whitmore Technologies. Ethan returned to construction part-time and started a small handyman business that let him set his own hours around Maya's needs. They weren't perfect. Lena still had days where the darkness crept in and she had to actively fight it with therapy and medication and leaning on her family. Ethan still had moments of paralysis when Maya got sick, still felt Sarah's absence like a physical ache. Maya still struggled with her limitations, with being different from other kids, with the reality of her condition. But they had each other. They had honesty and trust, and the willingness to show up even when it was hard. They had a home filled with laughter and tears, and the messy reality of people choosing to love each other despite and because of their brokenness. On a cold October evening, exactly 3 years after the night at the river, they returned to the railing one more time. Maya was 10 now, taller and stronger, her latest cardiac test showing remarkable stability. Lena was grounded in a way she'd never been before. Her success measured in moments instead of metrics. Ethan had learned to breathe again, to live instead of just survive. They stood together looking at the dark water, 3 people bound by catastrophe and choice. I'm glad I slipped, Lena said quietly. You jumped, Maya corrected with the bluntness she'd never outgrown. Maybe a little of both, Lena admitted, but I'm glad Ethan was there. Glad he didn't walk past. Glad he was brave enough to jump in after a stranger. You're not a stranger anymore, Ethan said, pulling both of them close. Your family, your home. Home, Lena repeated, and the word held everything, love and safety and belonging, the things she'd thought died in a fire 25 years ago, the things Ethan thought died with Sarah, the things Maya thought she'd never have again, but they'd found it anyway. Built it from scars and honesty and the courage to stay when leaving would have been easier. The river kept flowing, dark and endless and indifferent, but it had given them this, a chance meeting that became a lifeline, a moment of catastrophe that became the beginning of healing, 3 broken people who'd found wholeness in choosing each other. They turned away from the water together and walked home through the October evening, hand in hand, carrying their pasts and their futures, their fears and their hopes, all of it woven together into something that looked remarkably like love. And in the space between what they'd lost and what they'd found, in the careful balance between memory and possibility, they'd built something worth fighting for, something worth living for, something worth staying for, even when, especially when, staying was the hardest choice of all. The river that had almost claimed Lena's life had instead given all of them a second chance. They'd taken that chance and transformed it into a family built not on perfection, but on presence, not on never falling, but on always getting back up, not on avoiding pain, but on facing it together. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything.